Chapter 68, Jiang Hao makes it to the top 10. Chapter 68, Jiang Hao makes it to the top 10. After seeing Han Ming off, Jiang Hao walked around the spirit herb garden. The spirit beast followed him around. "Who is that?" "A true disciple," said Jiang Hao. "His status is higher than mine in the sect, so don't cause any trouble." "True disciple? It's no wonder he didn't give me a second glance. Master, you need to work hard to elevate your status around here." Jiang Hao glanced at the spirit beast but didn't respond. He had been in the mine for so long. Jiang Hao knew that the beast was just joking. By now, it knew how to act around others, especially in the sect. "Master, why don't you follow me? Everyone in the underworld knows that I have unlimited potential and will definitely dominate the world in the future." Jiang Hao ignored the beast. The beast was getting arrogant day by day. Jiang Hao only hoped that it wouldn't cause any trouble. He busied himself in the spirit herb garden. He was once again back to collecting a few bubbles a day. Jiang Hao missed mining. It was so easy to get bubbles in the mine. If nothing worked, Jiang Hao had planned to do something that would get him punished and sent back to the mine. However, the mine needed to be made safe first. It would take too long. Even other miners were being assigned jobs in other areas of the sect. In the evening, Jiang Hao returned to his house and planned things out. He had received news that the Heavenly Note sect had won against the Azure Mountain. They had brought home many treasures. The battle was over. The Heavenly Note sect had captured many intruders and traitors. If the captives were lucky, the other sects would come to claim them. If not, they would be doomed to work in the mines forever. Women who were captured might be taken away by the Heavenly Joy Pavilion. Jiang Hao sighed. He couldn't interfere in this matter. He had no status, no resources, and no spirit stones even to buy a saber. How could he help others when he couldn't even help himself? He took out the talisman manual and read it. He needed to earn more spirit stones. Jiang Hao only had 350 spirit stones left. He still needed to buy a good saber and some good quality tea. He opened the talisman-making manual. The first on the page was the healing talisman. It was similar to the pain-relieving talisman but much more effective. Few people bought the healing talisman, but there was always someone in need. It was good to have them handy. He would definitely find some customers for it. A healing talisman wasn't as effective as a healing spell, but it was useful in emergencies. For example, if someone was seriously injured and, in a state where they couldn't cast a healing spell, a healing talisman might just buy them some time till they were rescued. Therefore, people in the Foundation Establishment realm and Golden Core realm often kept these talismans handy, especially if they were venturing outside the sect. Jiang Hao studied the process of making such a talisman. The paper used to make these was the same as the one used in the 10,000 Swords talismans. The price was half of what a 10,000 Swords talisman would cost. He could only sell it for about 30 spirit stones. "It's a pity I didn't make any talismans before the battle with the Azure Mountain," muttered Jiang Hao. "Otherwise, I could have earned a lot." The healing talismans would have sold for a lot because people going out to fight would have stocked up on them. Now, there would be fewer people buying it, and they would refuse to pay more than 30 spirit stones for it. Taking a deep breath, Jiang Hao activated the clear and pure heart ability and began to study the process for making healing talismans. At the Cliff of Broken Hearts, Han Ming headed to the Cliff Master, Ku Wu Chang's house. He looked excited. He was eager because the Cliff Master had said that all those who had contributed to the fight would be included in the top 10 list depending on how much they had contributed. All those who made it to the list would receive a lot of rewards. Han Ming didn't have a hope of making it into the top 10 disciple list of the sect. However, he was sure he would be in the top 10 when it came to disciples from the Cliff of Broken Hearts. He had participated in the battle from the outset, passed 5 trials, and killed 6 generals. He had made a lot of contributions. Han Ming wasn't the only one present in the Cliff Mater's courtyard. There were 2 other disciples. A senior brother and a senior sister. There were only 9 formidable disciples in the Cliff of Broken Hearts, including him. Han Ming greeted Ju Wu and Fei Zhu. They waited patiently in the courtyard. Moments later, Mu Qi arrived. He turned to the cliff master. Master, the law enforcement hall has sent over the merit list with the rankings. He handed the list to the cliff master. Mu Qi then stood and waited with the other disciples. Senior brother Mu, am I in the top 10? Whispered Han Ming. Mu Qi chuckled. I didn't get to peek at it, but the law enforcement hall recognizes your contributions, junior brother Han. I'm sure you'll be in the top 10. Han Ming was excited, but he didn't show it. He knew how to exercise self-control, especially among the seniors. If it was someone of lower status than him, then he could do whatever he pleased. Han Ming would show off to Jiang Hao soon. This would work to his advantage in covering for the humiliation he had faced at Jiang Hao's hands in the last fight. Ku Wu Chang seemed surprised. The disciples were even more curious now. Mu Qi was the only one who looked calm. It seemed as though he knew the reason for the Cliff Master's reaction. Interesting, 2 of the disciples from the Cliff of Broken Hearts made it to the list of top 10 disciples of the sect, said the Cliff Master. That's good. This means our branch will have more possibility of winning rewards during competitions. Master, who are they? Asked Han Ming eagerly. Ju Wu and Fei Zhu were also curious. One is Bai Yi. He is ranked 7th, said the Cliff Master. Bai Yi was the first disciple of the Cliff of Broken Hearts. He was very powerful, so it wasn't much of a surprise. What about the other one? Asked Fei Zhu. Jiang Hao. He is ranked 10th. Han Ming was shocked to hear the name. Chapter 69. Chapter 69. Need to get rich. Chapter 69. Need to get rich. Han Ming's head buzzed when he heard Jiang Hao's name. He couldn't understand how Jiang Hao, who was still in the Foundation establishment realm, could make it into the top 10 disciple list. That didn't make any sense. Only a few hours back, he had bragged about his achievements to Jiang Hao in the Spirit Herb Garden. Han Ming felt embarrassed. His achievements were nothing compared to this. He felt defeated. He had clearly felt that he could surpass Jiang Hao soon, but when would he be able to best Jiang Hao in a fight? The more he recalled Jiang Hao's calm face, the more embarrassed and frustrated he felt. Jiang Hao? Who's that? Ju Wu asked curiously. I think I heard his name before, said Fei Zhu. He works in the Spirit Herb Garden. I think he is in the middle stage of the Foundation establishment realm. Yes. That's him, said Mu Qi. Middle stage of the Foundation establishment realm? Ju Wu was in disbelief. How did someone like that make it to the top 10 disciple list from the whole sect? Han Ming perked up at the question. He wanted to know the exact same thing. A few days ago, the mine was under attack. Experts of the Black Heaven sect and the Thunderstorm sect led the attack. Manlong from the Flowing Waterfall was engaged in a fight with Shenyuan Tai, an expert from the Black Heaven sect. The attacker cast some runes which bound and rooted Manlong at that moment. Shenyuan Tai was casting a teleportation array to escape when Jiang Hao single-handedly stopped him while giving Manlong the chance to break free. It was because of Jiang Hao that Manlong was able to capture Shenyuan Tai, said Mu Qi. Shenyuan Tai is in the late stage of the primordial spirit realm. Everyone was shocked at that. No one present had the courage to face someone in the late stage of the primordial spirit realm, let alone fight them. They lowered their heads. Han Ming was especially ashamed of himself. He didn't think he could even muster the courage to stay put if he had been in Jiang Hao's place. I recall that his name was in the suspect list of the Law Enforcement Hall. Has his name been cleared this time? Asked Fei Zhu. He was cleared of previous suspicions, but he is somehow connected to the traitor Yang Hua this time. So, the Law Enforcement Hall cannot let him go entirely, said Mu Qi. Mu Qi was also puzzled by this. He didn't know if the Law Enforcement Hall was doing it intentionally. Did they somehow want to protect Jiang Hao, or were they just trying to prevent him from becoming a true disciple? In his opinion, Jiang Hao had already proved himself worthy of being given the title of a true disciple. The only problem was that his talent wasn't anything extraordinary. He was only above average. However, His performance and contribution were enough for the Cliff Master to take Jiang Hao under his wing. He was still a suspect, so that wouldn't happen anytime soon. Ku Wu Chang interrupted their discussion. Well, you have all worked very hard. Keep it up. I'm told that the competition between the disciples is going to take place in a few months. 5 winners will be selected from each cultivation realm. There aren't many when you consider the 12 branches in the sect. I hope you all can do your very best. They nodded. Han Ming wanted to participate. This was his chance to prove that he was an outstanding disciple. After one night of study, Jiang Hao finally understood how to make healing talismans. For those in the Golden Core realm, the success rate of making such a talisman was 50%. After a few practices, the success rate would at least be 80%. Jiang Hao was confident that he could get this right. Being in a higher level of cultivation indeed had its perk. However, he couldn't sell too many of the talismans. Otherwise, some people might get suspicious. There were some talismans that only those in the Golden Core realm could create. He couldn't sell those yet. He could only sell the talismans that were possible for those in the Foundation Establishment realm. The first 3 talismans of the 6 fine-grade talismans were of the latter type. He needed to make a lot of those 3 types of talismans. He decided to make more of the 10,000 swords talismans. They sold very quickly. These were also considered the most ordinary and were easy to make. Jiang Hao sighed and went out to the courtyard. He looked at the half-moon blade that he had buried in the dirt up to its hilt. It reminded him that he didn't have a saber that he could use. He opened his interface. Jiang Hao sighed. The numbers were pitiful, to say the least. In 2 days, his cultivation and lifeblood had made little to no progress. Well, first things first, muttered Jiang Hao. I need to earn spirit stones. Then, I need to buy a saber and good quality tea. Oh, yeah. I need to save some spirit stones to feed the beast too. The spirit beast needed a lot of spirit stones. I hope senior brother Mu Chi rewards me with spirit stones. He did say he was going to give me resources. Jiang Hao headed straight to the spirit herb garden. The spirit beast jumped up and followed Jiang Hao. It shook its neck to make the collar comfortable. The spirit beast had gained enough intelligence to know what the collar was. The spirit beast had gained enough intelligence to know what the collar was for. However, it had no intention of breaking it and escaping into the wild. It was proud of the collar. The collar set it apart from the wild, uncivilized beasts that roamed around without a purpose. It was proud of the fact that it was a special beast with a master who took care of it. Master, can't I eat people? Asked the spirit beast. Do you find humans delicious? Asked Jiang Hao curiously. The spirit beast nodded. How many people have you eaten before? Asked Jiang Hao. Not even one, yet, said the spirit beast. But all great demons eat humans. Everyone knows that I'm a great demon. Jiang Hao stared at the spirit beast. He wondered if he should let it go free because he didn't want it eating human beings in the sect. He continued walking toward the spirit herb garden. Well then, I guess I'll have to get rid of you. I don't raise demons. Master, I was just joking, said the spirit beast hurriedly. I'm not a demon. I can be a rabbit. I love carrots anyway. Jiang Hao shook his head. This beast has no shame. He saw Mu Chi in front of the spirit herb garden. Jiang Hao felt nervous and excited. He hoped today was the day when he would be rewarded with spirit stones. Chapter 70. I want spirit stones. Chapter 70. I want spirit stones. Mu Chi waved at him. Junior brother Jiang, right on time, he said. I came here to ask you what kind of reward you wanted for helping me out. Jiang Hao desperately wanted to say that he needed spirit stones but held himself back. It's up to you, senior brother Mu. Mu Chi chuckled. You shouldn't be so humble, you know. You'll be at a disadvantage. Jiang Hao smiled. He didn't want to cause trouble unnecessarily. He didn't lack resources, except spirit stones. He could always get the bubbles in the spirit herb garden. Well, I got some pills as a reward. Among them is the golden core pill, said Mu Chi. But I can't give that to you yet because you're still in the foundation establishment realm. So, I can give you some spirit stones instead. Will that be okay? Disciples in the lower realm couldn't have pills of the higher realm. Jiang Hao was actually in the golden core realm, so he could accept the pill, but he didn't want to reveal his cultivation. That's perfectly all right, said Jiang Hao. Mu Qi chuckled. It seems you're in need of spirit stones, he said. Well, all right. I have another golden morning pill. It isn't particularly expensive, but again, I can't give it to you because of your cultivation level. So, I am going to give you 600 spirit stones instead of the golden core pill and 250 for the golden morning pill. Mu Qi took out the spirit stones from his pouch, counted them, and handed them to Jiang Hao. Here, a total of 850 spirit stones. Mu Qi took out a bottle of pills. These are cleansing pills. It can help clear out poison or toxins from your body. These are fairly easy to make. I can give these to you directly. He handed Jiang Hao the bottle of cleansing pills. Jiang Hao had made those pills before. They sold at around 70 to 100 spirit stones each. He had kept some for himself because he was afraid of being poisoned. There is this spiritual sword. I can give this to you directly as well. Jiang Hao hesitated. Senior brother Mu, could you keep the sword and give me spirit stones instead? Mu Qi laughed. Of course. This spirit sword is decent. It will cost around 1,000 spirit stones, I think. I can give you that amount. Mu Qi took out more spirit stones and handed them to Jiang Hao. Jiang Hao now had 1,850 spirit stones. If he added 350 spirit stones that he had on himself, he had a total of 2,200 spirit stones. That was a huge sum. He could finally buy a better saber and tea leaves. The primordial heavenly blade was too powerful to be used as an ordinary saber. He admired Mu Qi. Mu Qi was a good sport and was also very strong. He even received great rewards for his missions when compared to Jiang Hao. Those in the foundation establishment realm didn't even receive half as much in reward after missions. Having a higher cultivation level was indeed beneficial. If he didn't already know that Mu Qi had acquired an inheritance in the mines and that's why he was being this generous, Jiang Hao would have suspected him of being a spy from another sect. However, there was still the matter of his affair with the Heavenly Saint sect's saintess in training. Jiang Hao needed to be careful. In a few months, there will be a competition. Junior brother Jiang, do prepare for it, said Mu Qi. Jiang Hao was confused. A competition? Yes. You didn't hear about it. The sect was victorious against the Azure Mountain, so they brought home a lot of looted treasures. The sect is going to distribute these treasures as rewards in the competition. Disciples from the Foundation Establishment Realm, Golden Core Realm, and Primordial Spirit Realm are all welcome to participate. The top 5 will get precious treasures as rewards. Jiang Hao didn't respond. He couldn't care less about the competition and didn't really want to participate. You have made great contributions to the mine and to the sect. I think you'll be expected to participate in the competition. Usually, the competition would be among 1 or 2 branches, but this time, it's between all 12 branches. Don't worry, though. It'll be a simple competition, and no one would be expected to jump realms. But you can if you're confident enough. Mu Qi bid him goodbye and left. Jiang Hao sighed wearily. Now, on top of everything, he needed to figure out a way to lose in the competition. His contribution had done him more harm than good so far. First, he was almost removed from the suspect list, which would have been dangerous. And now, a competition. I wonder what the reward is. He asked around out of curiosity. Cheng Cho had somehow found the list of treasures that were to be assigned as rewards for the competition. For now, only the rewards for the Foundation Establishment Realm have been decided, said Cheng Cho. We still don't know what the rewards would be for the other cultivation levels. Here, see for yourself. Cheng Cho left the list with Jiang Hao and went to play with the spirit beast. There were a total of 5 items. The first was the 9 Suns saber, which was forged from the 9 Suns true fire stone. It was compatible with all cultivation techniques. It also had true fire attacks and was suitable for all cultivators below the Return to Void realm. Overall, it was a powerful weapon. Jiang Hao knew that this saber was very valuable. If he sold it, it would fetch him a decent price. He wanted it, but he didn't know if it was possible for him to win first place. The second reward was a cultivation technique called the Heavenly Dawn Spiritual Technique. This was used to train one's spiritual energy. The third was a spell technique, the Nine Suns Flame. It could draw a sea of fire and cause rapid explosions to injure many enemies at once. It had the power to surpass realms and was terrifyingly efficient. The fourth was a Daoist robe, which allowed the wearer to float in the air. It also made them impervious to fire and water. It could be used to resist most types of attacks. Jiang Hao didn't really care for the rewards, except the saber. He had the 9 heavenly battle armor for defense, so he didn't care for the robe. The spells and cultivation techniques were useless for him too. He glanced at the fifth reward. Jiang Hao felt that this particular reward was very strange. A seed that contained extraordinary spiritual energy. Carrying it around could increase one's cultivation speed, and it also had the effect of focusing one's mind. Chapter 71. Chapter 71. Why don't you go and check it out? Chapter 71. Why don't you go and check it out? A seed with spiritual energy? What kind of seed is that? Jiang Hao was interested in the seed. If it was a powerful seed, he wanted to obtain it. These treasures were snatched from Azure Mountain, so they wouldn't be something simple. The seed might not be as rare and powerful as the heavenly fragrance Dao flower, but it would still be useful. It could even drop gold bubbles once in a while. Even if it only gave purple bubbles, that would still be great. But even if it wasn't as good, it would be fine if it could drop a gold one. However, he had to appraise it first. If it was worth something, then he needed to come up with a way to win in the competition among others from the Foundation Establishment realm. How do I make myself less conspicuous in the competition? Jiang Hao thought about it. He could make more talismans and fight with it instead. The power of a 10,000 swords talisman was average. If he could create some 100,000 swords talisman, it could inflict significant damage to anyone in the Foundation Establishment realm. 100,000 swords talisman was strong, but it wouldn't attract any unnecessary suspicion because it wasn't something unattainable for someone from the Foundation Establishment realm. It required materials similar to a healing talisman. He could make them tonight. Jiang Hao headed to the market after that and set up his stall. There weren't many people. The market was almost empty except for a few disciples. Junior brother Jiang, it has been a long time since I've seen you here. Leng Tian walked over to him. Senior sister Leng, I hope you've been well, said Jiang Hao politely. He noticed that Leng Tian was in the late stage of the Foundation Establishment realm. Her cultivation wasn't refined yet, which meant that she must have advanced just recently. Healing talismans. You can make those too. Leng Tian looked at the talismans laid out in front of her. How much is this one? 30 spirit stones, said Jiang Hao. I want 5 of these, said Leng Tian. Oh, do you have any 100,000 swords talisman? She handed him 150 spirit stones. The production cost had been 10 spirit stones to make one healing talisman. So, Jiang Hao earned a profit of 100 spirit stones. I don't have any 100,000 swords talisman right now, said Jiang Hao. The truth was that he wouldn't sell them even if he had them. He wanted to keep them for himself for the competition. Senior sister Leng, why are there so few people today? Asked Jiang Hao. You don't know, said Leng Tian. The sect has opened a temporary market. Many people go there these days. Our sect has brought home many treasures from the fight. They're selling most of them. You should go and check it out. Jiang Hao nodded and thanked her. He wanted to check out this new market. He also had to buy some good quality tea as soon as possible. Leng Tian looked around and then leaned forward. I heard that you managed to make it to the top 10. If you do well in the competition, you can choose among the rewards. I heard that there is a rare treasure called the Heavenly Recovery Pill which can help you break through the bottleneck of the peak stage of the Foundation Establishment realm to advance to the Golden Core realm. Heavenly Recovery Pill, asked Jiang Hao. How much is that worth? Leng Tian thought for a while. I'm not sure. It's useless for those in the Golden Core realm, but priceless for those in the peak stage of the Foundation Establishment realm. I think I saw it being sold for 3,000 spirit stones once. Someone else was selling it for 10,000 spirit stones. 10,000? After bidding farewell to Leng Tian, Jiang Hao went to the Snow Lotus Pavilion to buy some decent tea leaves. The first person he asked for was Tian Qinghong. 10,000 spirit stones for 5 grams. 10,000? Jiang Hao was shocked. This was a daylight robbery. How could tea be so expensive? What about spring in September tea? Jiang Hao asked again. She just extended a finger to point at another pack of tea. In the end, he bought azure red tea, which cost around 100 spirit stones for 5 grams. He spent 500 on it. Now he only had 1,850 spirit stones left. He spent 200 of those to buy some talisman-making materials. Jiang Hao then returned to his house. He began to make the 100,000 swords talisman. 6 days passed by in a flash. He spent most of his time in the spirit herb garden. He only found a handful of blue bubbles. However, he was still glad for the small progress he had made. In these 6 days, he was able to make a total of 30 talismans. 20 of those were the 100,000 swords talismans, and 10 were healing talismans. He wanted to sell 5 of the healing talismans and kept the rest for himself. Jiang Hao wanted to go to the new market that had opened. He told the spirit beast to look after the house while he prepared to visit the market. Master, could you get me a new collar? A stronger one maybe. This one is becoming tighter. Jiang Hao dropped it at home and he left. The spirit beast was about to advance in its cultivation level and would soon need a new collar. He walked around the market and asked for the price of healing talismans in some of the stalls. They were being sold for 50 spirit stones each. Chapter 72, Daylight Robbery. Chapter 72, Daylight Robbery. Jiang Hao found a spot in the corner and sold 5 healing talismans. He also sold some of the 10,000 swords talismans that he had left. This was a good time to sell talismans. After a few days, the demand would be less, and people might not really pay a good price for the talismans. Jiang Hao now had a total of 1,900 spirit stones. That should be enough to buy a decent saber. He sighed. It would be so great if he could find something that could be used both for the Foundation Establishment realm and the Golden Core realm. Jiang Hao saw many Dharma treasures in some of the stalls. There were decent sabers for sale too. They were all ordinary, though. Occasionally, he found a good saber, but it was ridiculously expensive. 1,900 spirit stones were not enough. Moreover, some merchants were very dishonest. They set exorbitant prices for some of the treasures and sabers when they weren't even that great. He saw the azure red tea in one of the stalls. It was being sold for 100 spirit stones for 5 grams. However, the quality looked worse than the one he had bought. Jiang Hao didn't want to buy it even if it was the same price. He was scared of that Demoness. He didn't dare offer her a fake tea. I don't even know her name. I didn't try to appraise her last time. When he met her for the first time, he was still in the early stage of the Foundation Establishment realm. He was now in the intermediate stage of the Golden Core realm. Maybe he was strong enough to find out more about her. Jiang Hao was looking forward to her visit for the first time in his life. If he could find something about her, it would mean that he was stronger than before. There were many merchants in the market who sold numerous things. Most of the things were looted from Azure Mountain. There were even people from other sects. Jiang Hao was wary. He saw that they were from different levels of cultivation. Some were still in the Foundation Estd 11 Cement realm, some Ortnem were in Tnin 601 in Core realm, Anarotnas were in the Lifeblood Refinement realm. He didn't see anyone beyond the Golden Core realm. Jiang Hao walked around for a while. He saw a stall at the side that he wanted to check. There were 2 men at the stall who seemed to be in their late 20s. As Jiang Hao approached, they smiled amiably. "Fellow disciple, want to take a look?" There weren't many things in the stall. There were only 3 magic treasures, a passable spirit sword, and a very ordinary shield for sale. None of these were worth any attention. However, a black blade caught Jiang Hao's eye. Judging from the material and craftsmanship, the blade seemed better than the half-moon blade he had used before. It was still usable for someone in the Foundation establishment realm. "How much is this saber?" asked Jiang Hao. He picked it up. "Ah, this is called the Black Fox. It is the work of a very famous master. It does not come cheap. However, for you, we can make it 3,000 spirit stones," one of the men, Li Fei, said in a whisper. Jiang Hao frowned. He didn't have that many spirit stones. The price was actually cheaper than what it would have cost in the Stellar Tower. In the Foundation establishment realm, this might be the best saber one could find. Jiang Hao wanted to buy it. Maybe he could add on some talismans with the spirit stones and make a deal. Jiang Hao thought about it. He had some healing talismans and 100,000 swords talismans. He also had some pills. That should be enough to make up for the shortage of spirit stones. "Fellow disciple, you're having difficulties in making up your mind. We are in a bit of a hurry, so we can reduce the price by another 500, said Hong Lai. The sudden drop in price made Li Fei unhappy, but he let it go. Jiang Hao felt that something was not right. Why were they in such a hurry to sell this thing? "You're lucky. This has been here a long time, and we want to get rid of it for new stocks." Jiang Hao nodded. He suggested using some of the talismans to make up for the shortage of spirit stones. Although the 2 men seemed hesitant, they agreed. In the end, Jiang Hao gave them 5 healing talismans and 1,200,000 swords talisman on top of 1,900 spirit stones. Li Fei smiled warmly. "Thank you, fellow disciple. Let me wrap it up for you." He picked up the sword, leaned down for a box, and handed it to Jiang Hao. "It's great doing business with you." Jiang Hao frowned. The weight wasn't right. He wanted to open the box to see if the sword was really there, but Li Fei put a hand on the box to stop him. "Fellow disciple, this transaction is over. You should leave now." Jiang Hao suddenly realized that he had been cheated. The saber wasn't inside the box, and the men were threatening him. They were both at the peak of the Foundation establishment realm. Jiang Hao nodded. "All right," he said and put the box away. Then, he left. "Brother Li," the person seemed unnaturally calm. "Is he dangerous?" asked Hong Lai. He was walking around alone tore along when NLUE. "I don't TN 111KNE NAS NED 0 DY else to ask for help," said Li Fei. "But we need to be careful anyway. We'll buy some resources to prevent him from coming after us. We can then modify our aura and disguise ourselves." The 2 men walked to a corner. When they appeared in the market again, they had turned into 2 women. No one could recognize them. Chapter 73, Where is my saber? Chapter 73, Where is my saber? Before it got dark, the 2 women left the Heavenly Note sect in a hurry. They had cheated a lot of people off their money. 2 had been in the early stage of the Foundation establishment realm, and the other one had been in the middle stage of the same realm. The former 2 were from other sects, and the latter was from the Heavenly Note sect. They were not afraid of the other sects, but the Heavenly Note sect was a different matter. They collected their stuff and prepared to leave. "Will everything be okay?" asked the short-haired woman called Hong Lai. "It's been so long since that transaction," said Li Fei, a long-haired, voluptuous woman. "If anything was supposed to happen, it would have happened a long time ago. Even if they send someone after us, they won't recognize us. I mean, even someone in the Golden Core realm wouldn't be able to find us. That person seemed just too quiet to get involved in an altercation. There's no danger." "True, that person seemed unnaturally calm," said Hong Lai. "It felt like he had no choice but to endure it. But he was the richest among those that we met today." Hong Lai laughed. "He does seem talented at making talismans. It makes sense he would have tons of spirit stones." "Don't worry too much about it," said Li Fei. "He's only in the middle stage of Foundation establishment realm. By the time he advances to the late stage, we'll already be in the Golden Core realm. Our strengths will be miles apart." Don't let someone in the Foundation establishment realm. Just as Li Fei turned around, she stopped in her tracks. Hong Lai's face was covered in blood. She stared at Li Fei in terror. A blade flashed. Li Fei's arm was severed from her shoulder. "Who is it?" shouted Hong Lai in fear. A saber pierced through Hong Lai's torso. She spat out a mouthful of blood. "Please, spare us. What do you want? We'll give you everything." "Where is my saber?" said a voice from behind. Hong Lai realized that it was Jiang Hao. They had succeeded in deceiving people numerous times. But this time, another knife slashed across her neck. "Don't trouble yourselves. I'll get it myself." Hong Lai felt the life drain out of her. She was so close to reaching the Golden Core realm. So close. After confirming that the two were dead, Jiang Hao took away anything that was valuable. The Law Enforcement Hall did not investigate the death of disciples from other sects. So, Ni didn't knave to clean up Attia himself this time. At night, Jiang Hao sat cross-legged on the bed in his room. He looked through the stuff he had snatched from the two people. There were some pills, talismans, and some magical array spells. He sighed. Only 300 spirit stones, 10 healing talismans, a few 100,000 talismans. Those scums spent it all on stupid pills. He needed to buy some pills too, but he had no use for these. They were all for the Foundation establishment realm. The only precious thing he had obtained was the black saber. He swung it around once and decided to use the name Half Moon Blade for this saber as well. He would need to buy another in the future anyway. It didn't matter what name was used. He put away the saber. He had also found a small iron dice with a face on each side. Is this what helped them change their appearance? He used the daily appraisal on the small iron dice. Jiang Hao put the treasure away. It was a dangerous thing. If his luck was chipped away bit by bit, it would make his life unlivable at one point. The next day, Jiang Hao went to the courtyard to collect the bubbles. The blue lotus and snow lotus gave off some bubbles. They also exuded a pleasant fragrance. With the heavenly fragrance Dao flower doing the same, his courtyard smelled very nice. The spirit beast was staring at the flower intently. "Do you always stare at the flower every day?" "Of course. It's your flower, master. I need to guard it well." Jiang Hao knew that this spirit beast was full of lies. They headed to the spirit herb garden. "Master, the woman that came to your house before. Do you eat people with her?" "What? I don't eat humans. But last time, she said she ate people," said the spirit beast. Jiang Hao frowned. The beast might actually be right. Fairy Ming Yi could prove to be even more dangerous than Yang Hua. "Junior brother Jiang, I haven't seen you for quite a while. I heard that you went to the mine and was worried that something might have happened." Fairy Ming Yi walked up to Jiang Hao with a smile. Chapter 74, Appraising the Red Demoness. Chapter 74, Appraising the Red Demoness. "I'm sorry for worrying you," said Jiang Hao. Everything turned out well in the end. Jiang Hao was peeved. Yang Hua had given him a lot of trouble. Ming Yi was also from the same sect as Yang Hua. He knew that she was going to cause more trouble. She was from the Heavenly Saint sect too. "I know. I am glad to see that you're fine. I also heard of your contribution to the sect. You've done well." Ming Yi smiled sweetly and handed him a potted plant. "Junior brother Jiang, could you check this spirit herb? I feel that something is wrong with it. I bought this from you last time." Jiang Hao took the potted plant and looked at it carefully. "This is time, it should be full of vitality, but did you try to do something to it, Senior Sister Ming?" Jiang Hao walked into the spirit herb garden. Some of the spawned bubbles flew to him. Jiang Hao set the potted plant down on a raised platform in the garden. A purple, 7-petaled flower was just in bloom. It didn't help much with cultivation, but it was a cheap spirit herb that was very fragrant. It helped a bit with focus and concentration. Ming Yi hadn't bought it directly from Jiang Hao. She had given the order for it, and the spirit herb garden had provided it. "I didn't really do anything special to it. It became like this." Fairy Ming Yi couldn't really remember doing anything to the plant, except maybe watering it occasionally. It's fine. I'll take a look. He tried to scan the time with his spiritual energy to see what was wrong. Soon, he discovered that the roots of the time were damaged. It seemed to be caused by excessive spiritual energy channeled into it. Senior Sister Ming, do you have a blue lotus in your courtyard? Asked Jiang. How? Yes, said Ming Yi. How is that related to this? Ah. It's because of that blue lotus. Place them far away from each other. Both emit spiritual energy. So, when they clash, one of them is bound to have a problem. Jiang Hao proceeded to try to fix the plant. Junior brother Jiang, you've offended quite a lot of people recently, haven't you? Fairy Ming Yi asked suddenly. Jiang Hao raised his head to look at her. He then turned back to the plant. Why do you say that, Senior Sister Ming? When I just came out of seclusion, I heard that you somehow provoked the Heavenly Joy Pavilion because of a traitor. It's not a small matter, said Fairy Ming Yi. You have avoided it quite spectacularly. But I recently heard you are involved in some matters concerning the Heavenly Saint sect. Jiang Hao looked at her blankly. Ah, you're not aware. When Yang Hua disappeared, her puppets showed some abnormalities. The Law Enforcement Hall investigated the matter and found out a lot about what Yang Hua was planning. I heard that she was from the Heavenly Saint sect. There are rumors that people from the Heavenly Saint sect have their eyes on you. It so happens that you were the last person Yang Hua was looking for before she disappeared from the world. Some think that Yang Hua betrayed the Heavenly Saint sect and gave something important to you. I'm not sure if any of that is true, but you should be careful, Junior brother Jiang. Jiang Hao was stunned by the news. This time he wasn't even pretending to be shocked. He wondered why the Heavenly Saint sect assumed that Yang Hua might have betrayed them and sided with him. Is Ming Yi just testing me right now? I know you have made such a big contribution in capturing Shenyuan Tai of the Black Heaven sect. However, I wonder, why did Manlong let you have the credit for something that big? The Black Heaven sect would obviously keep an eye on whoever helped capture one of their people. Jiang Hao was baffled. That made sense. No one had mentioned Manlong. Everyone thought he had fought Shenyuan Tai single-handedly. Was he just being used as a shield to divert attention from Manlong? It seemed even the top 10 disciples had to worry about being targeted by other sect. After that, Fairy Ming Yi turned to leave. Jiang Hao wanted to appraise her but was interrupted by the appearance of the Cliff Master. Jiang Hao was distracted. Even if Ming Yi was just testing him, he couldn't ignore all of her words. I'll use the daily appraisal on her tomorrow. She'll be back to get her plant anyway. He had not only offended the Heavenly Joy Pavilion but also made an enemy out of the Sunset Immortal sect and the Black Heaven sect. He needed to avoid leaving the sect at any cost. As long as the Law Enforcement Hall kept him on their suspect list, nobody could harm him inside the sect. He now had to worry about traitors from the Black Heaven sect who might have infiltrated the Heavenly Note sect. Jiang Hao sighed. He still needed to figure out a way to not appear too conspicuous in the competition. His master told him that he would be given the opportunity to choose one of the rewards if he managed to win. Jiang Hao was only interested in the strange seed. He wanted to appraise it to see what other uses it had. In the evening, Jiang Hao returned to his house. He sat in the courtyard, deep in thought. The only way to be safe in this world was to become stronger, and he needed to do that as soon as possible. Jiang Hao picked up the hoe that he had placed on the side. He sighed. I really want to mine. Bang! A white thing crashed into the wall. Jiang Hao was startled. He realized that it was the spirit beast. It was unconscious. Its face was bruised and swollen. Jiang Hao looked in the direction of the heavenly fragrance Dao flower. A figure dressed in red had suddenly materialized there. I see that you really miss mining. Hong Yuye looked at Jiang Hao. I'm sorry, said Jiang Hao and bowed. He threw the hoe aside. I don't really miss it. I was just recalling the bitter moments I spent in the mine. Chem. I see you have not changed your lying nature. Hong Yuye leaned down and touched the leaves of the heavenly fragrance Dao flower. The flower is growing very quickly. Jiang Hao hesitated for a moment and then decided to appraise her. Chapter 75. Chapter 75. Exposed for using a divine ability. Chapter 75. Exposed for using a divine ability. This was the very first time that the daily appraisal had failed. This ability never let him down. He could find information about anything or anyone when he used the daily appraisal ability. However, when he activated the ability on the Demoness, all it gave him were question marks. At least now he knew her name. Jiang Hao realized that he would need to break through the Golden Core realm and reach higher realms if he wanted to find out more about her. He did not know how long that would take. The only thing he could do was to keep trying to advance to greater cultivation realms. Are you using a divine ability on me? Hong Yuye's voice made him jump in fright. You seem flustered. She stood up and turned away from the flower with a faint smile on her lips. No, I wasn't. He didn't understand how she had discovered him using his ability. No one had been able to sense it before. Hong Yuye smiled. Lying comes so easily to you. You have used your ability twice on me till now. Do you think I don't know that? Jiang Hao lowered his head and remained quiet. Did you finish reading the book I gave you? Only the first part. I've only had time to skim through the rest, said Jiang Hao truthfully. And here I thought you might have already read it all since you like hiding so much. Hong Yuye shook her head. It is no wonder the way you use your ability is so crude. Anyone could sense it if they had half a brain. Jiang Hao was puzzled. What does she mean? Could abilities be hidden like one's cultivation? Do you still want to mine? Hong Yuye asked suddenly. Jiang Hao shook his head. No. I want to stay here and take care of your flower. Hong Yuye walked to the corner of the courtyard and pulled out Jiang Hao's half-moon blade from the dirt. Always with the lies. She looked at the saber for a while and walked into the house. I hope you have tea. Jiang Hao took a deep breath and opened the pack of red azure tea. He brewed a pot of it and poured her a cup. He placed the cup of tea gingerly on the table. Hong Yuye lifted the cup to her lips and took a sip. She didn't say anything. Jiang Hao heaved a sigh of relief. How did you raise the spirit beast? Hong Yuye asked. I just feed it spirit stones, said Jiang Hao. Just that. Hong Yuye took another sip of tea. Jiang Hao hesitated. I tie it up and feed it. Hong Yuye stared at him for a while. What else can you raise? Not sure. He was telling the truth. If he could use daily appraisal on the plant or animal, he could figure out a way to nurture it. However, he wasn't sure what else he could raise in his home. Find something interesting to plant in your small garden, said Hong Yuye. Jiang Hao sighed. Where do I find something like that? The heavenly fragrance Dao flower was the only interesting and rare item he had for now. If I like it, I'll take it with me. Hong Yuye looked at Jiang Hao. Do you have any objections? Jiang Hao was speechless. I guess not, said Hong Yuye and placed her cup on the table. He could sense her vast aura. I have no objections at all, said Jiang Hao hurriedly. Hong Yuye stood up and walked out. I won't make you work for nothing. When the time comes, I'll help you learn anything you want. Jiang Hao believed her. She had given him the nameless manual and the 7 forms of the heavenly blade, after all. Knowledge was invaluable. Oh, yeah, Hong Yuye turned to him. Prepare a better tea next time. I'll often visit to check on my flower. You do know what will happen if you anger me. I'll keep it in mind, said Jiang Hao. Hong Yuye then left. It hurts, yelled the spirit beast. What happened to my face? Jiang Hao checked its injuries to make sure the beast was all right. Then, he left it be. He knew Hong Yuye had attacked the beast till it fainted. She probably didn't want the beast to see her. Jiang Hao sighed. Where am I supposed to find a rare plant? He needed to go and check out the treasures that were to be used as rewards for the competition. He needed to see if the seed was worth it. Jiang Hao felt that a purple bubble would drastically change things for him. One more ability would really help him out. When he returned to his room, he realized that the half-moon blade was gone. He sighed. Why do you have to steal my blades, Hong Yuye? Jiang Hao felt calm after the Demoness was gone. There was such a huge difference in the way he felt when she wasn't there and when she appeared suddenly. He needed to get stronger too. He took out the Nameless manual and began to read. This time, he decided to read the entire book. He wasn't in a hurry. From what Hong Yuye had said, he needed to read the entire thing. He read the whole night and only finished it in the morning. Jiang Hao was deep in thought as he gently closed the book. There isn't a section on divine abilities, but it does talk at length about special spells and energy consumption. If there was any description of rare abilities, he would have noticed it. If Hong Yuye hadn't told him to read it again, he wouldn't have noticed anything about special energy consumption. Divine abilities consumed energy, but all of them consumed it in different ways. There were generally 4 things in a body that could be consumed. They were spirit, stamina, cultivation, and lifeblood. These were all consumed in different ways and for different uses. As long as he knew what was consumed and in which activity, he could mask it from the world. Since all these things were related to the breath and spiritual energy, hiding them would greatly reduce the traces he left behind. The person who wrote this book must be a genius. There were so many things in the book that he couldn't understand. Jiang Hao realized that he was still lacking in knowledge. If he hadn't decided to use the daily appraisal on Mingyi today, he would have used that ability on the book. He wanted to know if this was written by Hong Yuye herself. If it was, he needed to be even more careful of her. After a while, Jiang Hao headed to the spirit herb garden with the battered and bruised spirit beast. He saw Mingyi just in time. Jiang Hao activated the daily appraisal ability. Chapter 76, Chapter 76, The Seed of the Immortal Peach Tree. Chapter 76, The Seed of the Immortal Peach Tree. Jiang Hao recalled what the daily appraisal had shown him before when he appraised Mingyi. He realized that the Heavenly Saint sect was even more dangerous than he thought. The Heavenly Note sect and the Heavenly Saint sect were at odds. It was normal for the Heavenly Saint sect to suspect foul play concerning Yang Hua's disappearance. It just surprised Jiang Hao that they saw him as a threat. Jiang Hao had admitted that he met Yang Hua before her disappearance because he wanted to stay on the Law Enforcement Hall's suspect list. Otherwise, he wouldn't have mentioned it at all. Jiang Hao sighed. He seemed to make enemies everywhere. Fortunately, it seemed that the Heavenly Saint sect was still unsure of Yang Hua's reason for the disappearance. For now, Jiang Hao wasn't their priority. Jiang Hao walked toward her. Senior Sister Ming, here is your plant. I think it should be fine now. Thank you, Junior Brother Jiang. If I encounter trouble again, I'll come and find you. I hope you don't mind. He realized that she was trying to get on his good side. Before, he would have fallen for it. He used to be naïve and inexperienced. Ever since he had eaten the Heaven Extinction Jiyu poison, Yang Jiyu, he felt unaffected by such things. Jiang Hao began to organize and check on the spirit herbs. He couldn't visit the mines, so he might as well do his job well in the spirit herb garden. If there was even a small chance of getting a bubble, he would willingly do any work. While Jiang Hao was busy, the spirit beast went around the garden and talked to the people. Everyone called the beast Lord Rabbit jokingly. Jiang Hao ignored it. It had been a month since Jiang Hao had returned from the mine. Other than the trouble he had encountered with those 2 merchants while buying a saber, everything had been okay. There was steady progress in his attributes. He had been studying the Nameless manual diligently and appraising things at least once a day. He often appraised the spirit beast. There were no significant changes. He fed it spirit stones regularly. However, the beast was still in a state of shock after that day. The spirit beast didn't seem to be scared of him at all. There was someone else he was terrified of. The reason he kept appraising the spirit beast was to understand and learn the special consumption and the art of hiding it. After a few days of trying, he felt it. He understood what the Nameless manual had been trying to tell him. He felt a slight consumption of his physical and mental strength when he used his ability. Jiang Hao was stunned. Hong Yuye can even detect such a slight change? The consumption was so small that it was almost impossible to notice. If he could disguise his consumption, He could entirely hide the fact that he was using any ability at all. He wanted to test it on Hongya once again, but he was scared she'd blast him to hell. Jiang Hao made his way to the law enforcement hall. Yesterday, he had seen the rewards displayed in glass cases. Those had been for the Foundation establishment realm. Today, they were about to display the rewards for those in the Golden Core realm. Although he knew that he couldn't compete in the Golden Core realm category, Jiang Hao still wanted to see them. Jiang Hao stood in front of a display case that held the rewards for the Foundation establishment realm category. The first was the 9 Suns Saber. He felt that the reward wasn't anything great. He already had the primordial heavenly blade. The second and third rewards were books on different techniques. He didn't care for them. The fourth reward, which was the Daoist robe, wasn't something he wanted. He had no use for it. Finally, Jiang Hao saw a small box. The lid was open, and it revealed a black seed. It was the size of an egg and was covered in complicated patterns. He could sense faint spiritual energy from it. This is it. I wonder if it is important. If not, he would choose the 9 Suns Saber. He could still sell it if he didn't want to use it. Jiang Hao tried to conceal his consumption and then activated the daily appraisal. Although no one could detect it, he wanted to practice what he had learned. Jiang Hao made up his mind. The seed looked important. He would try to obtain it somehow. The seed needed to be placed next to a divine item. It might have been almost impossible for others but not Jiang Hao. He had the heavenly fragrance Dao flower in his courtyard and the primordial heavenly sword. He could use either of those. Jiang Hao asked around and found out that the competition would start in a month. I need to know how well I have to do to be able to choose the rewards. He went to look for the Cliff Master. You need something? Asked Ku Wu Chang. Yes. I wanted to ask which rank I need to be to choose one of the rewards. Go on. What about the first reward? Jiang Hao asked. That's for the winner, said Ku Wu Chang. But if you win, you can choose any other reward too. What about the fifth reward? If you make it to the top 3, you can have your pick among the third, fourth, and fifth reward, said the Cliff Master. There are a total of 13 participants. If you win 3 rounds, it might be enough for you to make it to that rank. Chapter 77. Wouldn't you win if you beat Jiang Hao? Chapter 77. Wouldn't you win if you beat Jiang Hao? There were 2 people from the Cliff of Broken Hearts who had made it to the top 10. Both people were from 2 different cultivation realms. That meant that the probability of someone winning from the Cliff of Broken Hearts was high. 4 finalists would be selected for the competition. If Jiang Hao could make it to the top 3, he could choose the seed. Most disciples found seeds useless because the benefits weren't worth it. Master, how do you think the rewards will be categorized? 9 Suns Saber, then the Daoist robe, the spell technique might be at the 3rd place, then comes the cultivation technique, and finally the seed. The Heavenly Dawn spiritual technique is only at the 4th rank in the list of rewards. That surprised Jiang Hao. The 9 Suns Saber is obviously the most powerful one. The Daoist robe can not only be used in the Foundation establishment realm but also in the Golden Core and Primordial Spirit realm. Although the Heavenly Dawn spiritual technique is impressive, it's extremely difficult to learn, and far inferior in effect to the 9 Suns flame spell technique. The seed. No one knows what attribute it has. So, it's placed as the last reward, said Ku Wu Chang. I had the seed examined. Its vitality is so low that it's useless. Maybe it'll be somewhat useful to those in the lifeblood refinement realm. It might be slightly useful to those in the Foundation establishment realm but completely useless for some in the Golden Core realm. Jiang Hao thanked the Cliff Master for his explanation. He asked his master for a new technique that he could learn before the competition. Other disciples would have to compete in a preliminary round to make it to the competition, but Jiang Hao was already in the sect's top 10 disciple list, so he could directly participate in the main competition. The Cliff Master, Ku Wu Chang, handed Jiang Hao some books. Learn this. It's called the Demonic Sound 1000 Miles. It uses the same basic form as the Demonic Sound Slash and is much easier to learn. Jiang Hao thanked him and left. He had to learn the demonic sound 1,000 miles as soon as possible. With the movement technique, he could buy time and wait for his opponent to be defeated by other competitors. The next day, some disciples from the Cliff of Broken Hearts wanted to set up an arena for practice. Jiang Hao followed them. He was the only one assumed to be in the Foundation Establishment realm. Others were in the Golden Core realm. Jiang Hao wanted to go with them because he wanted to see how powerful they were, in case he had to fight them in the future. He followed the other disciples for a few days to the arena. He thought that these disciples, in the Golden Core realm, were not even trying their best. Jiang Hao could defeat them with a simple slash of the primordial heavenly blade, or by using the 2 forms of the 7 forms of the heavenly blade. Jiang Hao didn't try to fight them. It was better not to showcase his strength. When people got stronger, they were often led astray by their pride. He needed to keep calm. At night, Jiang Hao practiced the demonic sound 1,000 miles technique and flitted past the forest at a great speed. There was a white shadow that sped past him. The white shadow was none other than Jiang Hao's spirit beast. It had become stronger and faster after breaking through to the middle stage of the Foundation Establishment realm. It muttered about wanting a new collar every time Jiang Hao approached. He ignored the beast. Getting a new collar was too expensive, and he didn't have many spirit stones right now. After receiving many spirit stones from Mu Qi, Jiang Hao should have been rich. However, after everything that had come to pass, he was still as poor as ever. He had a lot of spirit herbs, but they didn't sell at a great price. He ended up giving most of it to the spirit beast instead. Well, that's that with the demonic sound 1,000 miles. I guess I'll make more talismans. Jiang Hao wanted to make more 100,000 swords talismans. If the opponent was too strong, he could always use the talismans to deal with them. He practiced the 1st and 2nd form of the heavenly blade while paying close attention to energy consumption. 3 weeks later, Han Ming came over to meet him. "Senior brother Jiang, I'm looking forward to sparring with you in the competition." He said that and turned to leave. He was confident this time. Han Ming had defeated everyone in the preliminary round, even the disciples from the other branches. Jiang Hao sighed. A true disciple favored by the spirits of mountains and rivers, it's not impossible for him to advance very quickly. Jiang Hao sat in the courtyard and began to refine his saber. The black saber was similar to the primordial heavenly blade in length. Its weight was just right. The craftsmanship was indeed impressive. It was definitely the work of some famous master. Jiang Hao had practiced the 1st and 2nd form of the 7 forms of heavenly blade, the demonic sound 1,000 miles, and created 100,000 swords talismans. He felt that these were enough preparations to at least win 3rd place. However, he couldn't underestimate his opponents. They might have prepared a lot for the competition. The next day, Jiang Hao woke up and walked out to the courtyard to water the heavenly fragrance Dao flower. The spirit beast approached Jiang Hao. "Master, why don't you want to take me along to the competition?" "Why should I? I could help. My speed is astonishing. When our opponent approached you, I could slash my claws at him and injure him. You can then win. I was thinking of leaving you in charge of the spirit herb garden in my absence," said Jiang Hao. "All right. That'll do too," said the spirit beast happily. The competition was held in the central square of the Heavenly Note sect. There were many arenas there. There were 3 categories for the competition: the Foundation Establishment round, the Golden Core round, and the Primordial Spirit round. Jiang Hao looked at the list for the Foundation Establishment round. There were 13 people. Han Ming stood in the center. He was almost through with the middle stage of the Foundation Establishment realm. As expected of a true disciple, he had advanced so fast. Jiang Hao scanned the list and found that he was supposed to fight against Xin Yue of Thunderfire Peak. The name was familiar. Jiang Hao had gone on a mission to the Devil's Den with her once. He didn't expect her to have advanced to the middle stage of Foundation Establishment realm. He walked to the arena. Xin Yue of Thunderfire Peak looked at the name list with confidence. Although she had just advanced to the middle stage recently, she had benefited a lot from the fight against Azure Mountain. She had a red scale sword in her hand, a moonfrost robe draped on her body, and many talismans that she could use. She had everything she needed for this competition. Shin Yue wanted to win the Heavenly Dawn spiritual technique. Junior Sister Shin, with your recent experience in the fight, it might not be difficult for you to gain victory, said a senior. It was mostly luck, Shin Yue said humbly. Soon, they saw the name list for the competition. Shin Yue realized that her opponent was the Cliff of Broken Hearts Jiang Hao. Shin Yue was in disbelief. Wasn't he in the early stage of the foundation? Establishment realm? How did he advance to the middle stage so soon? Shin Yue almost lost all her confidence. However, a senior congratulated her. Jiang Hao? That's great, said a senior. Junior Sister Shin, I heard that he just got lucky because of some fortuitous encounter. He has no real combat experience. You'll definitely win. The congratulatory voices rang in her ears and annoyed her. She gritted her teeth. She would still fight with all her might. The Heavenly Dawn spiritual technique was too precious for her. Chapter 78, Victory decided with just one slash. Chapter 78, Victory decided with just one slash. In the arena, Jiang Hao waited quietly. There weren't many people in the audience. He wasn't a famous person, after all. Shin Yue wasn't as well known either. People usually rushed to watch fights between those of higher realms. Jiang Hao was the same. He wouldn't waste his time watching fights between those in the lower realms, either. A woman approached him. Her hair was tied in a ponytail and her eyes were filled with determination. She seemed like she was going to fight to the death. He wouldn't have cared about the fight if it was any other time. However, he needed that seed. Senior Sister Shin, it's been a while since I saw you here, said Jiang Hao. Junior Brother Jiang, likewise. I didn't expect you to advance so quickly. Shin Yue felt a little bitter. She had come to this fight feeling very confident in herself. She hadn't expected to meet someone that she least wanted to. In the Devil's Den, she had feared Jiang Hao. I was just lucky, said Jiang Hao humbly. Jiang Hao heard some people cheer for Shin Yue. He didn't care. A senior in the Golden Core realm approached them with a notebook. State your name, please. Shin Yue of Thunder Fire Peak. Jiang Hao of the Cliff of Broken Hearts. Let's begin, said the senior. In an instant, Jiang Hao felt a spiritual sword flying toward him. Clang. He unsheathed his new half-moon blade and blocked the attack. There was no time to waste. His opponent continuously attacked him from all sides. Jiang Hao defended himself as best as he could. His opponent had no intention to stop. His slashes became even more frenzied. For a moment, Jiang Hao only tried to defend. He didn't have an opening to attack. He stayed where he was. His opponent didn't even let him move from the spot. There was a rumbling sound. Jiang Hao felt the fluctuation in the spiritual energy. He had learned to sense changes in spiritual energy from the Nameless Manual. It was a wonderful feeling to be in control. He just needed to wait till the opponent attacked because he knew the exact direction from where she would launch her attack. Jiang Hao was on his guard this whole time, but he could sense every attack before it landed. He dodged and blocked easily. However, Shin Yue was already feeling the strain of keeping up with her attacks. She used all her strength. Not one of her attacks flustered Jiang Hao. She felt as though he was a monster. He didn't move an inch from the spot. He didn't even break a sweat. Jiang Hao just stood there blocking her attacks as it rained on him. Shin Yue used the lightning sword technique and threw the sword at Jiang Hao. Jiang Hao's blade rose to block the attack. He used the demonic sound slash technique this time. There was a boom and dust flew everywhere. His saber cut through Shin Yue's lightning sword and broke it in half. The blade flashed past, missing Shin Yue's cheek by inches. The saber then fell on the floor with a clang. Shin Yue looked terrified. She took a deep breath to calm herself and bowed to Jiang Hao. Jiang Hao bowed to her in return. Thank you so much for letting me win, Senior Sister Shin. Shin Yue gave him a bitter smile and turned around and left. The people who had supported Shin Yue followed her. The senior from the Golden Core realm approached the arena. Jiang Hao of the Cliff of Broken Hearts wins. The senior glanced at him a few more times. He couldn't believe Jiang Hao's foundation was so strong. Jiang Hao bowed to his senior and left the arena. The next fight would be held in the afternoon. The top 4 competitors would be selected today. They would then fight tomorrow until there were only 3 left. The top 3 would then compete with each other the following day. Jiang Hao did some calculations and figured out that he still had to fight 3 more rounds. He couldn't make his win seem too obvious. Xin Yue wasn't someone weak. Han Ming, too. After participating in the battle against Azure Mountain, he must be even stronger than before. After a while, Jiang Hao returned to the Spirit Herb Garden. Jiang Hao was happy when he felt the bubbles absorb into his body. Although the changes weren't very great, it was still something. His spirit was much stronger than those of the same rank. He would soon break through to the late stage of the Golden Core realm. After that, he began to take care of the spirit herbs. He cared for the spirit herbs because they were the reason for his growth. Did you lose in the competition? Cheng Chou walked to Jiang Hao. No, he said. Then, shouldn't you be resting right now and preparing for the afternoon? Asked Cheng Chou. No need. Cheng Chou did not say anything further and got busy with the herbs nearby. Jiang Hao always treated the people well whenever they worked in the Spirit Herb Garden. They, in turn, hoped he would succeed in whatever he did. With a whoosh, the spirit beast darted to his side. Master, I found something wrong in that corner of the garden. Where? Asked Jiang Hao. The spirit beast led him to a corner. Jiang Hao examined the area. He found out that the nutrients in the soil were depleted, and it hadn't occurred naturally. Somebody had accelerated the growth of whatever had been planted there before. Go and tell Cheng Chou to find out what was planted in this area, said Jiang Hao to the spirit beast. If the spiritual herbs were left to grow on their own, they would absorb the nutrients but also replenish it by various means. While Cheng Chou investigated the matter, Jiang Hao returned to the central square. He saw his name on the list for the next round. His opponent was Zhu Chan of White Moon Lake. Senior sister Zhu Chan? Jiang Hao found it hard to believe. If she had made it to the second round, then it meant she was very strong. She was actually in the middle stage of the Foundation Establishment realm. When he walked to the arena, he saw that Zhu Chan had already arrived. Junior brother Jiang, it really is you. I thought it was someone else with the same name. When we last met, you were just in the early stage of the Foundation Establishment realm. Now, look at you. You're already in the middle stage. Zhu Chan smiled warmly at him. Jiang Hao gave her a friendly smile in return. I was just lucky to advance quickly. You're so amazing, senior sister Zhu. I did hear rumors of White Moon Lake being full of geniuses. It seems the rumors are true, after all. Zhu Chan smiled. The rumors aren't true at all. There are very few people from the White Moon Lake in this competition. I'm the only one from that branch who's in the middle stage of the Foundation Establishment realm. Ah, is that so? Names, please, said the Golden Core Realm Senior once again. Chapter 79, A Fish Leaps Over the Dragon Gate. Chapter 79, A Fish Leaps Over the Dragon Gate. After they gave their names, the fight began. Red silk materialized around Zhu Chan. This is Hong Ling, she said. It plays strong offense and is very fast. Junior brother Jiang, please don't push yourself if you feel like you can't handle it, alright? She waved her hand and the red silk floated at Jiang Hao at an impossible speed. Jiang Hao blocked it with his blade, but he was pushed back. The red silk was indeed very powerful. It was a completely different attack style from senior sister Xin. As expected of someone who had made it all this way and stood alone in her achievement, Zhu Chan was quite impressive. Just as he was thinking about that, the red silk attacked again. As the red silk attacked, he dodged and used demonic sound slash to attack Zhu Chan, who stood at a distance. However, no matter how many times he used that technique, Zhu Chan dodged it easily. Zhu Chan was indeed very powerful. She might even be close to advancing to the late stage. Jiang Hao couldn't afford to drag this out any longer. In the beginning, he had planned to keep the fight up until the opponent got exhausted. However, he realized that Zhu Chan was better than that. Jiang Hao used both demonic sound slash and the demonic sound 1,000 miles at the same time. The technique was enough to defeat the red silk. In an instant, Jiang Hao appeared behind Zhu Chan and placed his hand on her shoulder. Zhu Chan put down her red silk. I lost. Thank you for letting me win, senior sister Zhu, said Jiang Hao politely. Zhu Chan didn't really feel disappointed. She left the arena after bowing to Jiang Hao. Out of curiosity, he appraised Zhu Chan. She can sense malice around her. Jiang Hao was surprised. He now understood how she had been able to dodge every attack he threw at her. He had thought that she might have studied something like the Nameless Manual too. It turned out that she had the ability of higher perception. In the end, I wasn't trying to attack her. I just put my hand on her shoulder. Maybe she couldn't sense my intent then. Jiang Hao thought that that was the most likely explanation. He was a bit uneasy. It seemed that Zhu Chan could rise through the realms quite easily with her ability. Jiang Hao didn't dwell much on it. Someone of pure heart and mind like Zhu Chan deserved more than being stuck in a demonic sect. As Jiang Hao left the arena, he saw some people engaged in a heated argument. Looking at people like them, Jiang Hao was glad that someone like Zhu Chan existed in a demonic sect. On the way back, he met Han Ming. He looked happy. Senior brother Jiang, I made it to the top 4. Jiang Hao smiled at him. Congratulations, junior brother Han. Did you also enter the competition? Asked Han Ming. I did. Han Ming wasn't disheartened to hear that, but he did feel a bit uneasy. Han Ming made his way back to his house. On his way, he met some other seniors. Junior brother Han, did you make it to the semifinals? Han Ming nodded. I did. Wow, you're amazing. You just advanced to the middle stage of the Foundation Establishment realm, and you already made it to the top 4. Your future is bright. Han Ming smiled and thanked them. Back at his house, Jiang Hao studied the Nameless Manual. Although he was careful with the energy fluctuations he revealed when using his abilities, he still wanted to study the manual on a deeper level. He also wanted to learn the 3rd form from the 7 forms of the Heavenly Blade. Unfortunately, he neither had the time nor the knowledge to begin practicing it. The middle stage of the Golden Core realm wasn't enough to learn the 3rd form. He needed to advance further. He studied the manual till midnight and then began to cultivate. Every time he tried to study the manual, he had to activate the clear and pure heart ability to understand the content of the manual. It exhausted his spiritual energy. It was a pity he hadn't been able to obtain a purple bubble. Otherwise, he could have received another ability. The next day, after collecting the bubbles in his yard and the spirit herb garden, Jiang Hao headed to the central square to check the name list. Jiang Hao was surprised to find that his opponent was none other than Han Ming. He wondered how Han Ming was feeling about this. He headed to the arena and waited for Han Ming to arrive. After a while, Han Ming approached. I know it'll be difficult to win against you, senior brother Jiang, but I'll still give it my all. Names, please, said the Golden Core Realm senior. He glanced at Jiang Hao and gave him a nod. The senior seemed optimistic about Jiang Hao. After that, Han Ming cast a spell, and lightning spread around him. Then, he charged at Jiang Hao like a bolt of lightning. Clang! As the sword and saber clashed, Jiang Hao was pushed back a little. Han Ming had become much stronger, and he could sense another force surging around the sword. An inheritance. Jiang Hao guessed. He wasn't worried anyway. He began to attack. The saber and the sword clashed in a frenzy. The demonic slash intertwined with the lightning. Han Ming used his strongest move and slashed at Jiang Hao with the sword of lightning. Jiang Hao dodged it. He used the demonic sound 1,000 miles and stepped closer to Han Ming at such a speed that Han Ming didn't even notice him until Jiang Hao placed the flat of his saber on his forehead. For a moment, Han Ming had thought that he could win. I lost. Han Ming put away his word. Thank you, junior brother Han, said Jiang Hao as he sheathed his saber. There were some people watching the fight, but they didn't seem too surprised. Jiang Hao was a senior, after all. Jiang Hao didn't rush off to his house this time but sat and watched the fight between those in the Golden Core realm and also the Primordial Spirit realm. The techniques and spells they used were extraordinary. He tried to remember the spells so that he could use them in the future. The next day, Jiang Hao continued watching the fights between those in Golden Core realms. He especially paid attention to the people in the peak stage of the Golden Core realm. On the third day, Jiang Hao appeared in the square again. Today's match would decide the winner. Chapter 80. Chapter 80. Junior brother Jiang keeps a low profile. Chapter 80. Junior brother Jiang keeps a low profile. Ning Wanping from Law Enforcement Hall. Jiang Hao was surprised to see someone from the Law Enforcement Hall competing in the arena. He was worried for a moment. He didn't want to provoke someone from the Law Enforcement Hall, but he realized that this was a competition, and the Law Enforcement Hall wouldn't be that petty. Jiang Hao had already made too many enemies. The most significant one was the Heavenly Joy Pavilion. If they couldn't find another vessel, they would keep targeting him. He approached the arena. After the 4 rounds were completed, the winners could choose the reward. A young man arrived at the arena. He was dressed all in black. His eyes were devoid of any motion. After careful observation, Jiang Hao confirmed that the opponent was in the middle stage of the Foundation Establishment realm. He was very strong. When he released his aura, a bone-crushing cold radiated everywhere. His opponent definitely wasn't an ordinary person. Jiang Hao thought about it and realized that anyone who had made it to the top 4 obviously would be extraordinary. Han Ming hadn't made it to the top 3 despite being favored by the spirits of mountains and rivers. This person must be very powerful indeed. Losing at this stage wouldn't even feel disheartening because all the opponents were exemplary. "State your names, please," said the Golden Core Realm Senior. Jiang Hao was surprised to see him yet again. He wondered if other categories had the same referee from beginning to end too. "Ning Wanping of Law Enforcement Peak," said Ning Wanping impassively. "Jiang Hao of the Cliff of Broken Hearts," said Jiang Hao. The opponent was in no hurry to attack him. Jiang Hao also stood there patiently. Soon, Jiang Hao realized that the opponent was using that time to raise his momentum. In an instant, his energy rushed toward Jiang Hao. Jiang Hao knew that such a movement was used in the second form of the 7 forms of Heavenly Blade. Jiang Hao used his saber's spiritual intent to block the attack. Ning Wanping's spiritual attack became faster and more relentless, but Jiang Hao's saber was enough to block the energy. To the outsiders, both were rooted on the spot and did nothing. Meanwhile, Jiang Hao and Ning Wanping were busy fighting with their aura and spiritual energy. "How long do you think senior brother Jiang from the Cliff of Broken Hearts can last?" "I don't know. Let's go and watch other matches. This is getting boring." "Okay. Let's go." A few people got up and left. They were just a few paces away from the arena when they heard a loud explosion. The sound startled everyone, and they turned around to check. They were surprised to see Ning Wanping on one knee trying to support himself with his broken sword. He spat out a mouthful of blood and his body shook. What happened? The people who were leaving were disappointed to have missed out on the action. Everyone wondered about the same thing. How had Ning Wanping lost? Jiang Hao sighed in relief. It was just as well that the opponent had raised his momentum to such an extent that he had exhausted himself. Otherwise, if this had dragged on any longer, his cultivation realm would have been exposed. While the opponent had used his sword along with his spiritual energy, Jiang Hao had used 3 slashes of his blade. The first slash was useless against the opponent. The second slash had broken Ning Wanping's sword. Jiang Hao held back on the third slash because Ning Wanping would have died otherwise. "Thank you," Jiang Hao said softly and bowed. "Likewise." Ning Wanping stood up calmly. Ning Wanping knew that he would have died if Jiang Hao hadn't held back on his last attack. Jiang Hao stood there as the senior approached him and announced him as the winner. He smiled at Jiang Hao. "When do you want to choose the reward?" asked Zhon Lai. He had watched Jiang Hao fight from beginning to end. He noticed that junior brother Jiang was powerful but kept a low profile. His cultivation was solid, His Dharma treasure was extraordinary, and his saber techniques were top-notch. "Can we do it now?" asked Jiang Hao. "Of course," said Zhon Lai. "Others might hear about it when it's announced officially, but you can still make the choice now. You are given the priority because you are the winner." Zhon Lai led Jiang Hao to the area where the rewards were showcased. "You can choose the reward now." Jiang Hao pretended to look at each reward very carefully. He finally walked to the last item and chose it. It was the seed in the box. "Are you sure you want this?" asked Zhon Lai. "You can choose anything you want. You don't even have to worry about provoking anyone with your choice since this is a competition and the sect owns these treasures. Nobody will challenge you for choosing something else." "Thank you," said Jiang Hao. "I think this is perfect for me at the moment." The seed was what Jiang Hao wanted the most. It was the sole reason he had given his all in the competition. Other rewards were insignificant. Zhon Lai didn't say anything further. He gave Jiang Hao the box with the seed. Jiang Hao headed back to the Cliff of Broken Hearts. He needed to plant the seed near the heavenly fragrance Dao flower. After 7 days, he could uproot the seedling and plant it somewhere more spacious. It would cost him a lot of spirit stones. Zhon Lai watched Jiang Hao leave. He couldn't help but sigh. The one who won the competition ended up choosing the most useless reward of all. The others were lucky. The one ranked second would definitely be overjoyed. Zhon Lai couldn't say anything. Everyone made their own choices, after all. Jiang Hao planted the seed. He stood up and dusted off the dirt from his clothes. "Now I wait for 7 more days." He headed to the spirit herb garden. He wanted to pick up some bubbles. If he waited until tomorrow, he would get only a few. When he arrived at the spirit herb garden, he saw that Cheng Chou and the others were at their wits' end. "What's wrong?" asked Jiang Hao. A few days ago, he had asked Cheng Chou to investigate an area in the garden. "Senior brother Jiang, I found out that the depleted area held bone flowers from the 100 Bones forest." "How do you know that?" asked Jiang Hao. "This morning, Uncle Rabbit discovered that there was a problem with another area in the garden. We checked the area, and it was severely depleted in nutrients like the other area we found yesterday. The only similarity was that bone flowers had been planted in both places." "Take me there," said Jiang Hao. He was the one who looked after the spirit herb garden. If there was any problem with the spirit herb garden because of the herbs planted there, then Jiang Hao would be blamed for not taking care of the place. He would be accused of not doing his job well. There would be consequences. Chapter 81, Harassing an honest person. Chapter 81, Harassing an honest person. The spirit beast was sniffing the area around the fence. When it saw Jiang Hao, it ran to him. "Master, this area has the same problem as the last one." Jiang Hao nodded. He squatted down to check the soil. The area was lacking severely in nutrients. If this went on, it would take 2 or 3 years for the garden to recover. "Where are the bone flowers?" asked Jiang Hao. The spirit beast led the way, and Jiang Hao followed it. After a while, he stood in front of a white flower. Even the stalk and the leaves were entirely white. The bone flowers were used for strengthening the bones and/or refinement of energy. It was an important spirit herb that was native to the 100 Bones forest. Usually, the bone flowers needed a very specific kind of area to grow. Occasionally, people planted the bone flowers in the spirit herb garden to raise them until they were ready to be harvested. There hadn't been any problems in the past. After examining the area closely, he realized that the flower was the cause of the depletion of nutrients. Jiang Hao used his daily appraisal on the flower. Jiang Hao felt helpless. How could someone profit from destroying a spirit herb garden? He didn't know who Bai Yi was. He had never heard that name before. "How many bone flowers are there in the whole garden?" Jiang Hao asked. "Around 500, said Cheng Chou. The bone flowers weren't very valuable. However, 500 of them could fetch a decent price. Inform the people of the 100 Bones forest. Tell them that we have a problem," said Jiang Hao. "All right." Cheng Chou did not hesitate. After Cheng Chou left, Jiang Hao went to the market. He sold 12 of his 100,000 swords talismans. It fetched him about 300 spirit stones. The after-effects of the fight with Azure Mountain had passed. The prices and demand for items had returned to normal. Prices for some items had even fallen. Jiang Hao barely managed to make 600 spirit stones in total. He was worried about the bone flowers and the problems associated with it. Jiang Hao went back to the spirit herb garden after that, but Cheng Chou was nowhere to be seen. So, he returned to his house. Jiang Hao thought that he could meet Cheng Chou tomorrow, or he would definitely come to find Jiang Hao if something was wrong. The next day, Jiang Hao still didn't see Cheng Chou in the garden. That night, Jiang Hao couldn't sleep, so he cleaned his sword. The following day, Jiang Hao watered the heavenly fragrance Dao flower and headed to the spirit herb garden. He finally saw Cheng Chou there. "Senior brother Jiang, I went to look for the people from the 100 Bones forest yesterday. They said all other things have to wait because they are caught up in some urgent matter. We will need to wait for at least 5 days. Cheng Chou lowered his head guiltily. "I also found out that other spirit herb gardens are facing the same problem." Jiang Hao was worried. He didn't want to tell his master about it. Once he was accused, it would be troublesome. Jiang Hao wanted to solve the problem without attracting any attention to it. If the spirit herb garden couldn't be restored, there would be consequences. It seems the 100 Bones Forest sect is so fearless that they even try to destroy the whole spirit herb garden for profit. "Uproot the bone flowers and place them far away from the spirit herb garden," said Jiang Hao. "All right," said Cheng Chou. Cheng Chou didn't object. He felt partly responsible for the problem. Jiang Hao waited for 5 days, but the people from the 100 Bone Forest sect didn't come. Cheng Chou had gone to confirm and had just returned. They said they need 5 more days. "What about the other spirit herb gardens?" asked Jiang Hao. "How are they faring?" "They haven't transplanted the bone flowers to another area yet," said Cheng Chou. "They feel that uprooting the bone flowers will have consequences." The bone flowers that had been uprooted had almost withered. Cheng Chou was worried, but he didn't dare disobey Jiang Hao. The thing about demonic sects was that the strong harassed the weak. So, the guardians of the other spirit herb gardens wouldn't dare start any dispute, no matter how much they had to suffer for it. White Moon Lake also had a spirit herb garden, but the 100 Bones Forest would never dare to plant a mutated flower there. Ju Chan was a formidable guardian. They feared offending her. They only dared to mistreat weaker guardians. "Then let's wait for them a little longer," said Jiang Hao. The bone flowers had been transferred to an area far away from the spirit herb garden, so there was nothing to worry about. It had withered and was about to die. If they delayed any longer, things would escalate, and it would no longer be possible to solve the problem peacefully. Jiang Hao was willing to compensate for the dying bone flowers. He didn't care if the bone flowers died. Usually, ordinary bone flowers were very resilient. They didn't wither away so easily. This mutated version could only survive if it could absorb nutrients from other spirit herbs. Seeing Jiang Hao calm made Cheng Chou feel at ease. Several other spirit herb garden guardians were already panicking. They didn't want to transplant the flower to an area outside the garden, so they watched as their gardens suffered great damage. Jiang Hao instructed the spirit beast to keep an eye on the garden, and he worked on the spirit herbs. After finishing his work, Jiang Hao didn't hang around. He patrolled the garden to make sure there weren't any other problems. Jiang Hao couldn't help but sigh. He felt burdened. Not only did he have to be wary of the traitors and spies in the sect, but also needed to be careful of his fellow disciples. 2 days later, Jiang Hao checked on the seed he had planted beside the heavenly fragrance Dao flower. He surrounded it with 99 spirit stones. He then watered it. "Now, I have to wait 9 days more." After 9 days, the seed was supposed to take root and sprout. At that time, bubbles would start to appear. Jiang Hao knew that purple gold and gold bubbles would be impossible to get for now. The seed couldn't grow into a divine tree yet. For the past few days, Jiang Hao had spent most of his time selling talismans and studying the other forms of techniques from the 7 forms of Heavenly Blade. He studied the first and second forms very closely. Jiang Hao wanted to strengthen the two forms even more. He mostly used his usual saber to practice it but sometimes switched to the primordial heavenly blade. He still hadn't found out who Bai Yi was. He didn't dare ask around because he didn't want to raise suspicion. Another 3 days passed in a flash, and Jiang Hao finally saw someone from the 100 Bones forest sect arrive at the spirit herb garden. The one who had arrived was some disciple in the late stage of the Foundation establishment realm. His name was Li Kai. Jiang Hao had talked to him in passing. "Junior brother Jiang, you're not very kind," said Li Kai as Jiang Hao approached. Li Kai's dominating aura radiated around him. "Why do you say that, senior brother Li?" Jiang Hao ignored his aura. They were at the spirit herb garden. The sect didn't tolerate fights in the garden. "I was only a few days late, but you uprooted the bone flowers and left it out to die." Chapter 82, A New Divine Ability. Chapter 82, A New Divine Ability. "There was a problem with the bone flowers," said Jiang Hao calmly. "It was destroying the spirit herb garden. It would have destroyed more areas if I hadn't uprooted it." "Are you saying that the 100 Bone Forest sect is trying to destroy the spirit herb gardens?" asked Li Kai. "How is it that only you have a problem with it? It seems the other spirit herb gardens let the bone flowers grow until someone from our sect came over to discuss it. Do you feel like you are powerful enough now and don't have to care about offending the other sects?" Li Kai was on a roll. "Nobody pointed out any problems at the time when we paid you to plant the bone flowers in the spirit herb garden. It seems the complaints are coming from you only when the bone flowers is about to mature. Is there really a problem with the bone flowers, or do you have a problem with us, junior brother Jiang?" All the blame was shifted to Jiang Hao so casually. Jiang Hao didn't want to argue because it'd be useless anyway. "I went to look for you twice," said Cheng Chou in Jiang Hao's defense. "I already mentioned the problem in detail, but none of you cared. If you hadn't dragged out the matter for so long, it wouldn't have come to this." Li Kai glared at the fearful Cheng Chou. "The 100 Bones Forest sect has paid you to maintain and take care of the bone flowers because we have no time. Do you think we would have paid you to raise the bone flowers if we had the time to run over whenever you called us? We did inform you that we had urgent matters to attend to. Isn't it normal for us to take a few days more to deal with those matters and then find the time to see you here? For a matter as small as that, you found it okay to destroy our flowers?" Jiang Hao waved Cheng Chou away and told him to continue with his work. Chang Chou turned and left reluctantly. "Senior brother Li, how do you want to deal with this? It's better if we find a reasonable way to solve it. What's done is done anyway." "All right," said Li Kai. "You're right. A mature bone flower costs 5 spirit stones. This spirit herb garden was given a total of 500 bone flowers. That would be 2,500 spirit stones. Isn't the bone flower worth only 3 spirit stones?" asked Jiang Hao. "That was before. The price of everything has risen since the fight with Azure Mountain," said Li Kai. "I heard you made a lot of contributions to the sect lately. I'm sure you have some spirit stones to spare." Li Kai knew about Jiang Hao. He had done his homework properly before coming here. Manlong had asked Jiang Hao for help during the fight with the Black Heaven sect, and Jiang Hao had helped him. Manlong was smart. He received the reward for capturing the enemy but pushed Jiang Hao to take the fall by shifting the credit to him. In this way, most people, including the Black Heaven sect, thought that Jiang Hao was the reason Shenyuan Tai was captured while Manlong reaped the benefits. Jiang Hao was silent. He didn't have 2,500 spirit stones. He had never seen that many spirit stones in his life. Jiang Hao could only pay 900 spirit stones. He had 2,000 swords talismans, but that was barely enough. "Senior brother Li, will you be taking away the bone flowers too?" asked Jiang. Hao as Snee glanced at Tneen Pile or Witnaria bone mowers. "Yes. The flowers belong to us. It's only right that I take them back," said Li Kai. "Then shouldn't you reduce the price by a bit?" asked Jiang Hao. "The bone flowers belonged to us from the beginning. The compensation is your apology for destroying them. The two don't overlap." Do you have the spirit stones to pay for them or not? I know you earn spirit stones very quickly. You can pay the remaining amount in 3 months. Li Kai looked at him. I am reasonable, you know. If you can't pay in 3 months, you can take 6 months to pay back. However, the delay would add some interest. Jiang Hao now knew for sure that Li Kai had spent a lot of time to find out about him. He had done his homework well. All right, said Jiang Hao. He took out 500 spirit stones and handed them to Li Kai. Here. Please accept this for now. I'll pay the rest back within 3 months. Sure. You are very easy to get along with, junior brother Jiang. Li Kai smirked. I heard that your garden is suffering from depleting nutrients. I have a treasure here that can replenish the nutrients lost. I can sell it to you for 1,000 spirit stones. I wouldn't sell them to anyone at that price. All right. Thank you. Jiang Hao nodded. Jiang Hao took the 2 black pearls and watched Li Kai leave. He activated the daily appraisal ability. Ming's Wuchuan? Jiang Hao vaguely recalled the name. He was the true disciple of 100 Bone Forest. Bai Yi didn't appear. Jiang Hao decided to find Ming's Wuchuan in 7 days. He looked for Cheng Chou and asked him if he was all right. After confirming that he was okay, Jiang Hao buried the 2 black pearls in the areas where the bone flowers had been planted. The nutrients did get replenished, but the land wasn't as fertile as before. If he wanted the area to recover from the deficiency, he needed to find something else. Jiang Hao decided to visit the spirit herb garden tomorrow to make sure there was no other trouble. He then headed back to his house and continued studying the second form of the 7 forms of the heavenly blade. Days went by, and Jiang Hao spent his time between his house and the spirit herb garden. He worked tirelessly. On the 7th day, Jiang Hao woke up early in the morning. He watered the heavenly fragrance Dao flower. The scent of the flower cleared his mind. However, his attention wasn't focused on the heavenly fragrance Dao flower today. He was delighted to find that the seed of the immortal peach tree had sprouted. The tender seedling had pushed through the soil and unfurled its delicate leaves. There was a purple bubble beside it. It wasn't a gold bubble, but Jiang Hao was still happy. He had waited for a purple bubble for so long. He could finally obtain another divine ability. He didn't rush to get it. Instead, he activated the daily appraisal ability. A bowl of water every day. Jiang Hao was surprised. The seed had seemed very high maintenance in the beginning because it was supposed to be surrounded by 99 spirit stones. However, it was fairly easy to tend to after taking root. Jiang Hao was curious. Will surrounding it with more spirit stones make a difference? As for placing the sapling near a divine item, Jiang Hao didn't have to worry about it. It was already growing near the heavenly fragrance Dao flower. Jiang Hao returned to his room. Jiang Hao chose to obtain the ability. His thoughts scattered. Jiang Hao felt his spiritual energy gather at the center of his forehead. He realized that the new ability would be concentrated there. A few moments later, he knew the name of this new divine ability, Reappearance of the Hidden Spirit. Chapter 83, Another Kill. Chapter 83, Another Kill. I need to find more purple bubbles for one more ability. Jiang Hao wondered where he could find purple bubbles. Should I wait for the immortal peach tree to mature? He didn't know how long he would have to wait. He didn't think much about it for now. Jiang Hao focused on his new ability. He raised his hand to feel the center of his forehead. What kind of power is this? He activated the ability. The divine ability had 2 parts. When he activated it, all his spiritual energy moved toward the center of his forehead and concentrated into a vortex. It was unstoppable, but Jiang Hao didn't panic. He waited and let the energy flow to the center of his forehead. Jiang Hao realized that this was the first part of the ability, Hidden Spirit. The next was Reappearance. When all the energy was swept and concentrated into a vortex, the second part of the ability could be activated to restore the energy to his body. Jiang Hao realized that this ability was very useful, especially when he was too exhausted to fight and had to face a strong opponent. He could then use the stored spiritual energy and instantly recover. Jiang Hao wondered what would happen if he activated the ability when he was at his peak. He decided to try this new ability for the next few days and get more familiar with it. After that, Jiang Hao headed to the spirit herb garden. He stood at the entrance and looked at the sky. The sky was a deep blue today. The day is so beautiful today. I can finally sleep in peace after tomorrow, said Jiang Hao. Master, you haven't been sleeping well, asked the spirit beast. What about you? Asked Jiang Hao without answering the question. Have you been sleeping well? I'm always in the courtyard. I sleep late, but I wake up very early. Jiang Hao knew that it spent most of its time staring at the heavenly fragrance Dao flower. It wanted to lick the petals of the flower but held back in fear every time. When it got tired of staring at it, it would then fall asleep late in the night. It then woke up before dawn and stared at the flower again. That was its routine. Master, are we going to the spirit herb garden again? Can we go somewhere else today? Asked the spirit beast. I can't. Jiang Hao shook his head. Then how will the sect know about my existence? They should all know about me and understand how invincible I am. Jiang Hao said nothing. He didn't know how to tell the beast that this was a demonic sect. Someone would probably kill it if they discovered it. Jiang Hao was counting on the gold bubble the beast might give. Once it stopped giving bubbles, Jiang Hao could throw it out if it wanted to roam around so much. Master, can you get me a storage treasure? I can't even accept gifts from people without it, said the spirit beast. Find Cheng Chou and get him to find you a suitable treasure, said Jiang Hao. Jiang Hao then headed to the spirit herb garden and the bubbles swarmed over to him. Jiang Hao sensed the minute changes in his attributes as the bubbles absorbed into his body. In the afternoon, Han Ming came to visit him. He gave him a token and said that it was from the Lawless Tower. There is a place at the side of the Lawless Tower where you can absorb plenty of energy. I often go there when I need to increase my cultivation. Han Ming smiled. I worked hard outside and did well in the competition because of it. I feel like I had an advantage because of that. You can make use of it too. Jiang Hao realized that Han Ming was here to show off again. You're truly amazing, junior brother Han. Jiang Hao humored him. Han Ming left feeling very smug of himself. Jiang Hao couldn't help but sigh as he saw Han Ming leave. If Han Ming was this way with everyone in the demonic sect, someone might try to get rid of him. A demonic sect was the least safe among all places in the world. The next day, a man took a small path to the 100 Bones forest. It was in the evening and the sun had already set. Everything was silent. Not even the birds chirped. Senior brother Ming, I'm here to pay my respects, said Li Kai. A white-robed man walked into the courtyard. His eyes were cold. They held no emotion. He looked at Li Kai. Come in, he said. Li Kai walked into the man's house. He took out his storage treasure and handed it to Ming's Wuchuan. This is our harvest this time, senior brother Ming. Ming's Wuchuan took the storage magic treasure and checked it. His brows furrowed slightly. There are spirit stones here but no other things. Not just a small amount, said Li Kai. I have yet to collect 2,000 spirit stones from Jiang Hao. He is from the Cliff of Broken Hearts and has many spirit stones. I told him I can give him more time, but he'd have to pay interest. He refused. Jiang Hao asked Ming's Wuchuan. Is that the same person that Manlong threw under the bus to escape the attention of the Black Heaven sect? Yes. But we don't have to worry. I asked around and found out that he won't create unnecessary trouble. Hates confrontation. Always keeps to himself. We'll be fine. Can he afford it, though? He can. The Heavenly Joy Pavilion made him pay 1,000 spirit stones in 3 months. He paid it back with no problem at all, said Li Kai. 1,000 spirit stones in 3 months. Chem. Maybe we need to take good care of this person if he can afford to pay so much, said Ming's Wuchuan as he took out a pill from his pocket and threw it at Li Kai. Here. This is for you. You did a good job. This pill can help you advance very quickly. Li Kai accepted the pill and thanked him profusely. He had worked so hard for this pill. Tonight, He could finally advance to the peak stage of the Foundation Establishment realm. He would then be one step away from advancing to the Golden Core realm. Just then, he heard something buzzing past his head. A long spear pierced through Li Kai's head at lightning speed. His head exploded. Blood splattered on Ming Zhuochuan's face. He couldn't understand what had just happened. Li Kai didn't even have the time to react before he dropped dead. Chapter 84. The Consequences of Killing a Formidable Disciple. Chapter 84. The Consequences of Killing a Formidable Disciple. Li Kai was dead. He died right in front of Ming Zhuochuan, and he couldn't even do anything. He felt shocked and powerless. Ming Zhuochuan was at the Golden Core realm. He calmed himself and looked around. However, in the next second, a saber stabbed him from behind. The robe on his body protected him. Ming Zhuochuan sighed in relief. He didn't waste any time. He started to gather his power. A purple light flashed. His defense shattered and his robe disintegrated. The silver-white blade pierced through Ming Zhuochuan's body. The attacks had happened so fast that there was only a difference of a few seconds between Li Kai's death and Ming Zhuochuan's fall. "Please, I'm willing to submit to you. I'll work for you," said Ming Zhuochuan. He didn't want to die. Forget it. Not in this life. The black saber also emanated purple energy as it slashed Ming Zhuochuan's throat. I'm a formidable disciple." The saber flashed again. This time, Jiang Hao used the second form of the heavenly blade, mountain suppression. Ming Zhuochuan was cut into pieces. "Even formidable disciples have just one life," said Jiang Hao. He then left with the storage treasure. Jiang Hao looked at the storage treasure. It had belonged to Li Kai. He inspected the place but found no other treasures inside. He didn't find any clue about Bai Yi either. "I wonder who he is." Ming Zhuochuan was in the middle stage of the Golden Core realm. Bai Yi might be even stronger. I might not be able to deal with Bai Yi right now. Jiang Hao didn't wait any longer. Before he attacked Ming Zhuochuan, he had used the daily appraisal on him. However, he had learned nothing important from him. "There are a total of 1,600 spirit stones," thought Jiang Hao as he looked into the storage treasure. "I paid 500, so who are these from?" Jiang Hao asked around and found out that at least 4 other people had been tricked. It was a pity that people tried to do this sort of thing. The guardians of the spirit herb gardens volunteered to work in exchange for sect resources. Speaking of which, I haven't received any resources for a long time. After taking the spirit stones and the 3,000 black pearls, Jiang Hao destroyed the storage treasure. He would have to face another investigation by the law enforcement hall later. He didn't know how serious the death of a formidable disciple was. He could only wait for Liu Xingchen to arrive. After that, he returned to his house to practice the new divine ability. Early the next morning, Jiang Hao opened his eyes and felt instantly re-energized. The power stored in the new ability really did wonders for him. This is truly amazing. He had just used the reappearance part of the new ability. The surge in power he felt was extraordinary. He almost wanted someone in the late stage of the Golden Core realm to provoke him so that he could test his new power. Jiang Hao caught himself. He couldn't afford to be reckless. The reappearance of hidden spirit ability would be his trump card. He wouldn't use it as he pleased. Divine abilities are so useful. I wonder how long it'll take me to collect purple bubbles again. Jiang Hao walked out of his house after storing his power in the hidden spirit in the middle of his forehead. The spirit beast was already waiting for him in the courtyard. "You woke up so early today," said Jiang Hao. "Master, something has happened," said the spirit beast. It sprinted up to Jiang Hao to show him its collar. "Look. It's cracked." "Then don't wear it." "No. If I don't wear it, how will others know that I'm your spirit beast?" The spirit beast was anxious. "Master, buy another one for me. If you do, I'll tell you something important." A collar would cost him more than 1,000 spirit stones. Jiang Hao sighed. It was just too pricey. However, the spirit beast was right. If he didn't get it a collar soon, Others would target the beast. He had 1,900 spirit stones in total. If he spent 1,000 on a new collar, he would be left with only 900. Jiang Hao didn't even know if he could afford more tea leaves for the Demoness. Jiang Hao decided to go to the market next time and decide there. He appraised the black pearls. Bai Yi again. Jiang Hao was curious about what realm the person belonged to. He was definitely someone knowledgeable if he could develop such devices. Jiang Hao wondered if he would get in trouble for taking so many nutrient pearls. It was better to advance to the next stage as soon as possible. Jiang Hao walked out of the courtyard to head to the spirit herb garden and ran into Louis Xingchen. He was followed by 2 other law enforcement hall disciples. All 3 looked very solemn. Jiang Hao felt uneasy. He thought there would be at least a few days before they sought him out. Junior brother Jiang, we meet again. Liu Xingchen looked very serious. Senior brother Liu, hello. What brings you here? Asked Jiang Hao. There was an accident. We are searching for a murderer. We need to observe the people related to the victims for a few days, said Liu Xingchen. Jiang Hao realized that the death of a formidable disciple in the Golden Core realm was a big deal. And this victim is somehow related to me? Asked Jiang Hao. Yes. Remotely, I should say, said Liu Xingchen. You need to come with us. Before we go, could we take a look inside your house? It's part of the process. I hope you don't mind. Of course, said Jiang Hao. Liu Xingchen turned to the other 2 people behind him. Go in and search. Please be considerate. Don't damage his things. Liu Xingchen didn't follow them inside. He stood near Jiang Hao. Is there anything significant in your storage treasure, junior brother Jiang? Jiang Hao's heart sank, but he didn't dare show any emotion on his face. He remained calm. Nothing much. A few talismans, medicinal pills, and some spirit stones. That's good, said Liu Xingchen casually. If you venture to any places which are guarded, they will check your storage treasure. I'm just informing you. Jiang Hao was shocked. Things had indeed turned very serious. Chapter 85. Chapter 85. Should I ask that woman for help? Chapter 85. Should I ask that woman for help? Liu Xingchen's words shocked Jiang Hao. There were 3,000 nutrient pearls inside his storage treasure. If his storage treasure was investigated, Jiang Hao would surely be exposed for Zhuochuan's death. Jiang Hao was relieved that Liu Xingchen wasn't in a hurry to check it now. He felt that he was doomed, but he maintained his cool. I have to find a way to hide the storage treasure away, thought Jiang Hao. When the people from the law enforcement hall were done with their search, Jiang Hao followed them outside. It wasn't like he had a choice to refuse. We are heading to the place where the law enforcement hall conducts its investigation. The investigation might last for 7 days. I'll have to trouble you for that duration, junior brother Jiang, said Liu Xingchen politely. Of course, it's no problem at all, said Jiang Hao. Which disciple was killed? A disciple from the 100 Bones Forest, said Liu Xingchen. Junior brother Jiang, do you have any sort of beef with Li Kai? We had a little disagreement with matters related to the spirit herb garden, said Jiang Hao. Liu Xingchen nodded. For other guardians of the other spirit herb gardens have been taken along to the law enforcement hall too, he said. We had to round up everyone who had contact with the 100 Bones Forest disciples in the recent days for questioning. Senior brother Li is an inner sect disciple, right? Asked Jiang Hao. It's hard to say. The law enforcement hall is taking over the investigation for this, said Liu Xingchen. I don't have the qualifications to head the investigations related to formidable disciples. Otherwise, I would have been able to tell you more about it. Jiang Hao nodded. What is the general process when it comes to such investigations? Well, first, the people connected to the case are all rounded up for questioning. They are observed for a while. This lasts for about 2 days at most, said Liu Xingchen. Then, the investigation officially begins depending on the clues collected. That might last about 3 days. The last 2 days are set aside for the outcome. Normally, it doesn't take that long, said Liu Xingchen. The 7-day duration is to make sure the investigation is unbiased, and the 12 branches are informed about the developments. Jiang Hao had many questions. He wanted to ask what would happen if someone vouched for him. Would the sect let him go? The murderer would be thrown into the lawless tower as punishment. His realms would be eaten away. Perhaps he could still mine and collect bubbles and try to find some way to bypass the lawless tower. The mine is destroyed. It still hasn't been renovated. Maybe I can find work somewhere else as a laborer. Jiang Hao's heart sank. It was over for him. I wonder if the reappearance of hidden spirit ability would be enough to fight against the lawless tower. No. If I'm caught, nothing can save me unless my master protects me. That's unlikely. Internally, Jiang Hao was in turmoil. Outwardly, he seemed fine. According to Liu Xingchen, it was unlikely for the law enforcement hall to ask for his storage treasure for at least 2 days. As long as Jiang Hao could find a secluded place to hide the nutrient pearls, he would be fine. Who should I ask for help? He looked at Liu Xingchen. Jiang Hao didn't think he could help. Besides, he couldn't confess. He would be taking a risk without knowing whether Liu Xingchen would help him for sure. It was too dangerous. Who else? That woman. Maybe he could ask her to visit him on the pretext that she needed to take her flower away. Compared to Liu Xingchen, Jiang Hao trusted her more. There have been multiple murders in the sect, but this time, it's a formidable disciple who ended up dead. So many things are involved. The law enforcement hall cannot let it slide because that would mean that the killer is roaming free while we cannot do anything about it. It would ultimately shake the foundation of the sect. The law enforcement hall is taking over fully to find that murderer, said Liu Xingchen. Jiang Hao hadn't realized that things would escalate to this level. So, if I'm killed someday, will the law enforcement hall do everything in its power to find the murderer? Asked Jiang Hao. Liu Xingchen laughed. Do you still remember the case that I mentioned to you before? A murderer was roaming free in the sect. He relied on his ability to hide and kill anyone that could provide a clue to his whereabouts. The sect master wanted him to be put down. Then, the law enforcement hall applied for the sect's supreme treasure, the heavenly essence soul modeling mirror. They were determined to find the murderer at all costs. They eventually caught him and killed him on the spot. Liu Xingchen looked at Jiang Hao. It was from that time that the law enforcement hall tightened its rules. Those on the law enforcement hall's list, whether as a suspect or a witness, are given full protection. Of course, sometimes the rules make exceptions like Junior Sister Yunruo. Jiang Hao lowered his head and sighed. The iron doors closed with a loud bang. Jiang Hao was made to stay in a small room. There was a big hole in one corner of the ceiling that let in a bit of light that did nothing to brighten the room. There was nothing in the room, except a mattress. He sat down on it and observed his surroundings. With his study of the Nameless Manual, he could now detect slight fluctuations in spiritual energy around him. This was simply a detention room in the law enforcement hall. The security wasn't strong, and the room didn't have magical protections. As someone in the middle stage of the Golden Core realm, I could easily escape from here, but doing so would be equal to admitting to guilt. The sect will hunt me down, but waiting here to be proved guilty is equally dangerous. Once he was proven guilty, he would be thrown into the lawless tower. Would anyone even try to save him? Maybe Elder Baiji could help him since she was the one who had brought him the heavenly fragrance Dao flower, or maybe that woman in red. However, there was a possibility that Elder Baiji wouldn't care. By the time Hong Yuye arrived, it might already be too late. Jiang Hao took a deep breath and looked up at the ceiling. Jiang Hao regretted taking the nutrient pearls. He might have been able to get away with killing a formidable disciple, but he had made a grave mistake by taking the pearls. If they searched him thoroughly, they would discover the pearls. If Jiang Hao got out of this situation, he would never make such a stupid mistake again. Jiang Hao thought about how to save himself. He could either break out of here and run, or he could ask Liu Xingchen for help by exposing himself. Either that, or he could ask that red Demoness for help. The woman in red knew a lot about him. If he could find something about her and use that as leverage to at least help him hide his storage treasure, He might be able to get away this time. But how would he contact her? He had 2 days at most. He needed to decide what to do in these 2 days. Jiang Hao stayed put in the room and waited for the days to pass. He was waiting for the final decision. In the worst-case scenario, he might have to depend on Liu Xingchen to buy him some time. The next morning, Jiang Hao was woken up by a noise in the room. He turned around to see a white shadow crawling down from the hole in the ceiling. The spirit beast's head looked down from the hole. It grinned when it saw Jiang Hao. "Master, you didn't buy me a collar." Jiang Hao was speechless. Chapter 86. Chapter 86. The Demoness arrives again. Chapter 86. The Demoness arrives again. Jiang Hao was surprised and delighted to see the spirit beast. He didn't know that the beast would come for him. It had gone through so much trouble just for a collar. "How did you get in?" Jiang Hao asked. Although the security was not that strict in the detention rooms, it would still be difficult for a beast in the middle stage of the Foundation establishment realm to sneak in without being detected. "I saw the hole in the ceiling and climbed in," said the spirit beast as it jumped and landed on the ground. "Besides, I have something that allows me to travel to places undetected." As the rabbit jumped down, it seemed to be covered in a white mist. It was visible for a fleeting moment, and then it disappeared from sight. Jiang Hao picked the beast up by the back of its neck and looked at it closely. The spirit beast crossed its hands indignantly. "How is this possible?" "What is it?" asked Jiang Hao. "I did say I could tell you something important if you bought me a collar, but you didn't listen." Jiang Hao hadn't expected the beast to have such an ability. The spirit beast's appearance had opened new options for Jiang Hao. Maybe there was hope yet. Jiang Hao activated the daily appraisal ability. The spirit beast's ability was indeed something. However, its ability was still weak. It could only bypass simple array formations and deceive those in lower cultivation realms. The beast had entered without anyone knowing, but it might not be able to leave in the same way. "Master, please get me a collar. This one has already cracked so much." Jiang Hao was silent. He placed the beast down on the floor. "I remember you asking for a storage treasure before. Cheng Chou got one for me," said the spirit beast as he showed it to Jiang Hao. "It's really nice," said Jiang Hao. "Now, listen to me. Will you be discovered if you try to leave?" "Nope." Jiang Hao smiled. He transferred the nutrient pearls, spirit swords, sabers, and medicinal pills to the spirit beast storage treasure. "Here. Take this, and go out the way you came in," said Jiang Hao. "Don't let anyone near your storage treasure. I'll definitely buy you a collar when I get out of here." "Really?" The spirit beast was delighted. Jiang Hao nodded. "Yes, but only if you manage to remain undiscovered." "Bah. Leave that to me. I'm invincible," said the beast. "Hide your storage treasure somewhere secluded where no one can find it. You can retrieve it when I tell you it's safe." The spirit beast nodded readily and climbed out of the hole in the ceiling. It disappeared from sight. Jiang Hao finally calmed down. It was risky to depend on the woman in red, Liu Xingchen, or even Elder Baiji. The woman in red was his safest option out of the three, but she was unpredictable. The spirit beast was the best choice. It would never betray him, but he still worried that it would be caught by someone outside. Suddenly, there was a commotion. On the right, chase after it, came a voice from outside. Jiang Hao's heart skipped a beat. The heaven extinction GU poison was helping him stay calm. Without it, he didn't know what he would have done. He was still too young and immature. No matter how much he tried to be careful, he always got into unnecessary trouble. Jiang Hao sighed. The most important thing right now was to find an opening for himself to be free from this place. The commotion outside died down. Jiang Hao waited. If the spirit beast was caught, it would be over for him. Sure enough, there was a knock on the door. "Junior brother Jiang, your actions have been exposed, but I can still save you." It was an unfamiliar voice. Jiang Hao wanted to believe that someone was willing to help him, but he wasn't that naive. "I don't understand what you are trying to say," said Jiang Hao. "You know what I mean. You only have one chance. Do you want to seize it? Jiang Hao realized that the person outside might be someone sent by the law enforcement hall to lull him into a sense of security so he would confess everything. That unfamiliar person didn't even mention the spirit beast, which meant the beast might have already escaped. Jiang Hao remained silent. The person outside sighed in frustration and left while muttering something. Jiang Hao waited. There was no sound in the darkness. He didn't hear anyone outside. The next day, when he opened his eyes, he saw a figure in red sitting beside him. It was the woman in red. She was looking up at the hole in the ceiling. When she saw him wake up, she turned to face him. It seems you like small and confined spaces. First, the mine, and now, this. Jiang Hao heaved a sigh of relief. He bowed awkwardly. Senior, greetings. He didn't know how she got here, but he knew by now that she could do anything. Hong Yuye waved her hand. A table, 2 chairs, and a teapot with hot water appeared in an instant. She sat down on the chair. Do you have any tea on you? Yes. Jiang Hao always carried the red azure tea that he had bought. He got up and hurriedly made some tea. If the spirit beast hadn't appeared yesterday, she'd have been his saving grace. Chapter 87. Was the Demoness waiting for me to ask her for help? Chapter 87. Was the Demoness waiting for me to ask her for help? After brewing the tea, Jiang Hao stood at the side. The room was small and quiet. He was worried that the door might open, and someone might find her here. How long are you going to be here? Hong Yuye asked as she sipped her tea. Maybe 4 or 5 more days, said Jiang Hao. She made it sound as though he had come here willingly. He didn't want to stay here at all. If the spirit beast wasn't caught, he would be allowed to leave in 4 or 5 days. The whole investigation only took 7 days. If there were no evidence against him, he would be released. I thought you liked small and dark places, said Hong Yuye. Senior, you misunderstood. This place doesn't compare to my house, said Jiang Hao. Hearing this, Hong Yuye became interested and asked, then how does your residence compare to the mine? I meant I like my house. I was in the mine to help out another senior, said Jiang Hao. Hong Yuye looked at him with a faint smile, but Jiang Hao remained calm. He did not believe that this woman could see through his thoughts. After Hong Yuye poured herself another cup of tea, she said calmly, use the divine ability that you used on me last time. The daily appraisal? Jiang Hao was a little hesitant since he might have to face interrogation later, and he wanted to save his ability for that time, but he had no choice. He lowered his energy consumption as much as possible. Senior, I used it. Hong Yuye was just raising her teacup to her lips. Her hands stopped. She looked at Jiang Hao. He just stared at her without blinking. A few moments later, he was slammed against the wall by a terrifying force. He stood up in pain. Thankfully, he wasn't injured. It is no wonder you only get along with that beast, said Hong Yuye. You're full of lies. Jiang Hao didn't dare to say anything and just stood there quietly. I'll give you another chance to use that divine ability, said Hong Yuye. Jiang Hao sighed inwardly. He had no other choice. He did activate his ability this time. The information given by his ability hadn't changed. He could only see her name followed by a bunch of question marks. I used it, he said truthfully. This time, Hong Yuye didn't say anything, but instead sat quietly and drank her tea. Jiang Hao couldn't understand this woman. She was a woman of few words. This was the longest she had stayed with him. Jiang Hao made more tea and served her. Hong Yuye only stood up when the sun began to set, and everything around Jiang Hao disappeared. The chairs, table, and teapot were all gone as though they had never been there in the first place. Next time I visit you, I don't want to see you here. She didn't say what would happen if she found him here next time, but the implication was clear. The air turned so cold and oppressive that Jiang Hao had a hard time breathing. I understand, said Jiang Hao. She just looked at Jiang Hao, and when she saw that he didn't say anything else, she turned around and left. There was a red shadow that disappeared after a while. Jiang Hao heaved a sigh of relief. She was finally gone. However, it was strange that she had stayed here for so long this time. She even paused for a while when she looked at him right at the end. Was she waiting for me to ask her for help? Jiang Hao didn't feel that the woman in front of him was particularly kind, but the heavenly fragrance Dao flower was in his courtyard. She had given it to him to raise it. That was proof enough that he was of some value to her. She would help him if he asked. Whether it was this woman, Liu Xingchen, or any others, they would help him for a price. In the absence of the beast, he would have chosen this woman to help him. If he had known she would come, he might not have asked the beast to take the storage treasure. Now, there was nothing to do but wait. At night, the door of the small black room opened, and Jiang Hao was brought out. He found himself in a slightly dark room with 3 people sitting across from him, 2 men and a woman. In the middle sat a bearded man. Jiang Hao from the Cliff of Broken Hearts, he said. Yes. Jiang Hao nodded. Sit down. I have something to ask you. Jiang Hao sat down calmly. You are much calmer than the others, I'll grant you that, said the woman on the left. Although he couldn't see their faces, they didn't sound young. The one on the right sounded younger than the other 2. I'm the Law Enforcement Hall's Deacon Elder, Fan Lu. I'm also the person in charge of this matter. I hope you'll cooperate and tell us everything you know, said Fan Lu solemnly. Jiang Hao nodded. Of course. We have reason to believe Li Kai came to look for you. Why? There was a problem with the bone flowers that they planted in the spirit herb garden. How did that go? He made me pay 500 spirit stones. Did you hate him for it? I didn't really hate him, but I was a little frustrated. What were you doing when Li Kai died? Jiang Hao wanted to say he was cultivating in his room, but he didn't. It had been nighttime when he had killed them. When did he die exactly? Doesn't matter. Did you deliberately throw out the bone flowers so that they would wither away? When Liu Chen died, he left behind some clues relating to the Cliff of Brother Hearts. Do you think that relates to you? That is, Jiang Hao was taken aback. Just answer yes or no, said the woman. How many spirit stones are there in Li Kai's storage pouch? I don't know. When Cheng Chou found out that there was a problem with the bone flowers, did he look worried or angry? Worried. When Li Kai died, did he look happy or depressed? I don't know that. Did Ming Zhuochuan bring a storage magic treasure with him? Jiang Hao was confused. I don't even know what to say to that. I don't know. At this moment, Jiang Hao felt puzzled. The questions had no logic to them. These people just asked random questions to confuse him. He felt as though something was trying to affect his mind, similar to senior sister Yun Ruo's bewitching technique. In the wee hours of the morning, the questioning stopped. He wanted to check his storage treasure. He handed it over. They rummaged through it and returned it to him. All right. You can go back to your house in 2 days. Until then, we might have to trouble you again. Jiang Hao nodded and walked out. The 3 people inside looked at each other. He was by far the best, said Fan Lu. He was calm even under my bewitching spell. I don't know how he did it, said Yang Mai. I didn't find anything special in the storage treasure either. He is from among the top 10 disciples of the sect. We can't detain him for too long without evidence. If we find nothing else tonight, we'll have to let him go. Yang Mai nodded. I can't shake off my suspicion, though. He is in the top 10 because Manlong threw him under the bus. The Black Heaven sect and the Wind Lightning sect are both watching. Whoever has the merit will attract their attention. It won't be long before someone comes after him. At that time, even Ku Wu might not be able to protect him. The aftermath will be tragic, said Fan Lu. Then I'll have to trouble you two for the rest. I'll go and report to the master, said Bai Yi, the youngest person of the trio. Fan Lu and Yang Mai stood up and bowed to him as he left. Chapter 88, Possessed by the True Dragon's Remnant Soul. Chapter 88, Possessed by the True Dragon's Remnant Soul. At night, Jiang Hao rested in the small black room with his eyes closed. In his sleep, he saw the path that Li Kai had taken and even saw Li Kai himself. Jiang Hao followed Li Kai subconsciously until a purple light flashed, bringing him back to his senses. Jiang Hao was still asleep but was aware that someone had cast a spell on him. This sudden realization made Jiang Hao break out in a cold sweat. If he had not cultivated the Hongmeng Heart Sutra, he might have killed Li Kai and Ming Zhuochuan in his dream, as he had done in reality. Jiang Hao looked at the forest and turned to leave. He wanted to follow Li Kai, but he didn't dare. However, just as he turned to leave, Li Kai suddenly attacked. Jiang Hao subconsciously defended himself. He even asked Li Kai why he was attacking him, but Li Kai didn't respond. In the end, Jiang Hao was heavily injured. He fell to the ground. Li Kai's bone sword flashed and slashed down. Jiang Hao's eyes flew open. He looked around the dark room uneasily. He felt that something had locked onto him. It should be the work of some expert. Jiang Hao sighed. The consequence for killing a formidable disciple was indeed severe. Next time, he would lure them outside. It was no wonder that many people in the Heavenly Joy Pavilion restrained themselves even if they hated him. Jiang Hao wasn't a formidable disciple, but his name was on the Law Enforcement Hall's list. They did not dare attack him. Who would want to risk going to the Lawless Tower anyway? Even if they made it out after a while, they would be crippled. Early the next morning, Jiang Hao stood outside the Law Enforcement Hall, watching the sunrise. He was a little surprised. It was only the 4th day, and he had been released. In other words, the beast hadn't been caught and no one had any evidence to prove him guilty. "Congratulations, junior brother Jiang," said Liu Xingchen. "You are the only one who was released so early. Didn't you say it would take 7 days? It's because you have made great contributions to the sect, so they can't hold you for long. It must be stressful just having your name on the suspect list, let alone being locked up for days." Liu Xingchen walked with Jiang Hao. Moreover, the Cliff of Broken Hearts won't just sit around and watch without doing anything. Your recent contributions have made you valuable to the Cliff of Broken Hearts. Even the Law Enforcement Hall can't take that away. As long as you are proven innocent, they cannot detain you for long. The others will have to stay put for another 3 or 4 days. Jiang Hao was surprised. The system was indeed fair. "Junior brother Jiang, you look surprised," said Liu Xingchen. "Although we are called the demonic sect, we do have a proper system in place. If someone kills the disciples, it reflects badly on the sect. The Law Enforcement Hall is just. They will do anything to find the murderer. If they can't find them on time, the Law Enforcement Hall will keep a close eye on everything. They might even summon the Heavenly Essence Soul Modeling Mirror for help." Liu Xingchen looked at Jiang Hao. "However, don't think that the sect is a safe place even with rules in place. If it's just injuries, the Law Enforcement Hall wouldn't care. The decisions are all left to the 12 branches. The Law Enforcement Hall only intervenes if things get serious." Jiang Hao understood. "You better be careful of the 100 Bones Forest," said Liu Xingchen. That puzzled Jiang Hao. "Why?" Liu Xingchen laughed. "Do you think you're inconspicuous? Your name had appeared so many times in the suspect list. You are associated with so many traitors. Everyone knows about you. Recently, you had a disagreement with Li Kai, and now he is dead. The person Li Kai followed might not be simple. He might target you in the future." Jiang Hao was shocked. He hadn't realized that he was so famous in the sect. He needed to keep a low profile. As for the 100 Bones Forest, Jiang Hao felt that he would be safe as long as he stayed in the Cliff of Broken Hearts. If you want to have a better life in this sect, you need to become a true disciple, said Liu Xingchen. If you become a true disciple, the 100 Bones Forest can't touch you. But then there will be no more restrictions on me to venture out, said Jiang Hao. The Heavenly Joy Pavilion would always find a way to do something to him outside the sect. Right now, the Law Enforcement Hall was like an impassable wall. If he didn't have the protection of that wall, the Cliff of Broken Hearts couldn't shield him, no matter how much they tried. There were also the Sunset Immortal sect, the Black Heaven sect, and the Heavenly Saint sect at his back. How could he survive if they all came at him? Maybe become a true disciple first and then get on the list again, said Liu Xingchen. Jiang Hao thought that that was a good idea, but it wouldn't be easy. The first step was to withdraw from the list, which was not too difficult. Next, he would apply to become a true disciple. He had about a 70% chance of success. Then, he would need to get on the list again, which would be very difficult. So, I can somehow make it to the list later, asked Jiang Hao. Not very easily. Unless you're connected in some way to a traitor, said Liu Xingchen. Even then, the law enforcement hall won't put you on the list without enough evidence. Your status will be too high. They will only do that if the matter is too big to ignore. Jiang Hao was speechless. It was too risky. He suspected that Liu Xingchen was implicitly trying to make him find some traitor that he needed to catch. Jiang Hao hesitated. He then used his daily appraisal ability on Liu Xingchen. There weren't many changes from when he had appraised Liu Xingchen the last time, except for the last line. Liu Xingchen is possessed by the true dragon's remnant soul? Jiang Hao was a little worried. So far, Liu Xingchen had been nothing but helpful to him in every way. Once the true dragon's remnant soul took over his body, the old Liu Xingchen would be lost to him. Should I tell him? Jiang Hao didn't know how to tell him. He would want to know how Jiang Hao had found out about it. There was no easy way to inform Liu Xingchen. Jiang Hao decided to pay close attention to Liu Xingchen. After a while, they parted ways and Jiang Hao headed to the Cliff of Broken Hearts. Jiang Hao went to meet his master and then returned to his house. The spirit beast was lying beside the heavenly fragrance Dao flower. It stared at it intently, as though it wanted to do something to the flower. It looked around and saw Jiang Hao. The beast jumped back in surprise. Master, you're back. Chapter 89, Returning the Favor. Chapter 89, Returning the Favor. Jiang Hao silently observed the spirit beast, taking note of its collar. He also saw that the beast didn't have a storage treasure on its body. He did not ask about it and instead proceeded to water the heavenly fragrance Dao flower. Within a few days, the immortal peach tree had shown some growth. Jiang Hao was pleased with its progress. I'll buy you a collar within a month. We'll talk about everything else after a month, alright? Said Jiang Hao. He then headed to the spirit herb garden. The beast pointed at its collar. But it had cricked a lot. Why don't you help me fix it, master? You can fix it yourself. After that, he went to the spirit herb garden. Cheng Chou was very happy to see Jiang Hao. The others also seemed relieved. The others were not easy to talk to, except for Han Ming, who he found easier to interact with. The only thing he had to remember was that he had to be respectful to Han Ming. As long as he stroked his ego, Han Ming wouldn't cause any trouble. Illinois asked around and found out that there was a similar incident with the bone flowers a few years ago. The 100-bone forest threatened a senior. He disappeared, said Cheng Chou. The same thing happened 10 years ago as well. Jiang Hao frowned. The incident seemed to happen every few years. The deaths of Li Kai and Ming Zhuochuan couldn't stop the matter. The real mastermind was Bai Yi. Jiang Hao still didn't know who Bai Yi was. According to Liu Xingchen, the mastermind might target him. He needed to find out who Bai Yi was. I have to become stronger as soon as possible. Jiang Hao looked at Cheng Chou. What level are you at, junior brother Cheng? I'm still in the 8th level of the lifeblood refinement realm, said Cheng Chou in embarrassment. He's already in his 30s. Jiang Hao was in his 20s and was already at the golden core realm. He was called a senior because of his status as an inner sect disciple. As a true disciple, he would have had to call Han Ming senior brother if he had lost to him in the previous fight. What cultivation technique do you use? Jiang Hao asked again. 100 revolutions of heavenly note, Cheng Chou said truthfully. The 100 revolutions of heavenly note was a high-grade cultivation technique that everyone in the heavenly note sect could get access to. The heavenly note sect didn't have 12 main branches before. It was said that the sect master destroyed each sect before turning them into subsects of the main sect. The people from the heavenly note sect were all from different lineages. The most important people formed the law enforcement hall and lived on the law enforcement peak. The 100 revolutions of heavenly note became a cultivation technique that was available to all. Jiang Hao decided to give some pointers to Cheng Chou to improve his cultivation. Although his comprehension of the 100 revolutions of the heavenly note was not deep, he was in the golden core realm. He could guide someone in the Cheng Chou was ecstatic to hear that Jiang Hao would help him out. To him, this was an opportunity of a lifetime. A month passed, and Jiang Hao was not called to the law enforcement hall. He didn't see any suspicious activity in the vicinity either. Bai Yi didn't appear either. The matter of 100 Bones Forest seemed to be slowly coming to an end. The people from the other spirit herb gardens were also released. The matter wasn't a small one, but it didn't cause an uproar either. Jiang Hao waited another month. 2 months had passed since Li Kai and Ming Zhuochuan's death. After making sure that everything had died down, he told the spirit beast to go and get its storage treasure from where it had hidden it before. "Master, can I buy a collar now?" The beast handed the storage treasure to Jiang Hao. "Where did you hide this?" asked Jiang Hao after making sure nothing was lacking. "In a turtle. The turtle is so old that it doesn't even move from its place. I hid it in its shell." Jiang Hao was impressed. The spirit beast was smart. "I'll buy you a new collar tomorrow." The spirit beast looked euphoric. It had waited a long time for a collar. Jiang Hao returned to his room and checked his interface. "It's more than half. If I cultivate, I have a high chance of breaking through to the late stage of the golden core realm. It feels a bit wasteful if it doesn't work." Jiang Hao had waited for the 100 Bones Forest to make a move after Ming Zhuochuan, but they had been too quiet. "Forget it. I'll just do it. I have been refining my cultivation for the past month. I feel that I can advance to the late stage." At night, Jiang Hao sat cross-legged on the ground and began to extract his blood essence for cultivation. This time, the power surged within his body right from the beginning. The Hong Meng Heart Sutra began to circulate, and Jiang Hao's entire body was covered in purple spiritual energy. The purple energy floated around him like a vortex. Jiang Hao felt the surging power in his body. He felt it trying to break through to the late stage of the golden core realm. However, it wasn't easy. His attributes kept dropping. He didn't dare lose his focus. The next morning, Jiang Hao's furrowed brows relaxed, and the purple energy gathered in his meridians. When all that subsided, a new power began to flow. A powerful aura spread around him. He had broken through to the late stage of the golden core realm. Jiang Hao opened his eyes and sighed in relief. "That was close. I almost failed." He looked at his interface and was a little shocked. "I exhausted everything and barely advanced. I'm still unable to refine my cultivation," thought Jiang Hao. "The rate is too low to refine everything. It would be safer to wait till it reached 100. Reaching the late stage of the golden core realm was a joyous occasion. Jiang Hao felt that he could even fight head-on with senior brother Mu Qi with this new power. Jiang Hao was also paying attention to Liu Xingchen. He had met and observed him for the past 2 months. There were no changes for now. He didn't even know why or how Liu Xingchen was targeted. When he went out to his courtyard, the spirit beast was already waiting for him. "You can go to the spirit herb garden." "I'll head there soon," said Jiang Hao. The spirit beast nodded. "Master, be quick. Don't delay too much. Buy me a nice collar." Then the beast ran to the garden. It seemed to think that it would get a better collar if it rushed to the spirit herb garden and did its work. Chapter 90. Can't afford to please the Demoness. Chapter 90. Can't afford to please the Demoness. Jiang Hao observed his courtyard. The heavenly fragrance Dao flower was a little taller than before. Aside from that, there were no other changes. The immortal peach tree already reached his knee in just 2 months. Perhaps next year, it would bear fruit. It was growing unexpectedly fast. Fortunately, the heavenly fragrance Dao flower hadn't matured very quickly. As long as the flower was here, Jiang Hao was considered valuable. The woman in red, Elder Baiji, and Liu Xingchen all had their eyes on the flower. So, in a way, Jiang Hao had their protection. He had done his best to appraise the people who passed by in recent months, but he hadn't found anyone suspicious. Jiang Hao headed to the market. He had avoided the market to keep away from the disciples of the 100 Bones Forest. The first thing he did while in the market was to buy a nice gold collar. The spirit wanted its collar to be eye-catching. He wanted to return the favor because it had helped him. It cost him 965 spirit stones. He asked the prices for collars that could be used on beasts at the late stage and peak stage of the Foundation Establishment realm. The price was 1,500 spirit stones and 2,000 spirit stones, respectively. As for the Golden Core realm, he couldn't bring himself to ask. The price would certainly be exorbitant. Next time, I'll just save a lot of spirit stones and buy a collar that is suitable for a beast at the Golden Core realm. That way, I don't have to buy it again and again. After that, he went to buy some tea leaves. He bought the same tea he had bought before, the red azure tea. It cost him 150 spirit stones this time. He spent 750 spirit stones on the tea. He only had 300 spirit stones left. What he earned was barely enough to sustain the spirit beast and the Demoness. She only appeared once a month at most. How could it be so expensive to keep her happy? Jiang Hao sighed. She's been asking for tea all this time. I hope she doesn't ask for refreshments too. After that, he set up a stall to sell some talismans. He did not have many talismans, so he only earned about 400 spirit stones. With those spirit stones, he bought a stack of talisman-making materials. He bought talisman pens and beast blood for about 500 spirit stones. Now he had only 200 spirit stones left. Fortunately, everything was going smoothly. He didn't meet anyone from the Heavenly Joy Pavilion or the 100 Bones Forest. Perhaps they were waiting for the right opportunity to strike. Only those who weren't very strong made trouble. Others waited and planned something big. Jiang Hao didn't think anyone in the 100 Bones Forest would think he killed Ming's Wuchuan. Most people looked down on him anyway. Everyone believed that Jiang Hao had only made it to the top 10 because Manlong had chosen him to take the fall. Otherwise, he was someone in the middle stage of the Foundation Establishment realm who wasn't worth much. Jiang Hao had heard many people whispering about him. He just ignored them all. However, he was worried that the Black Heaven sect would actually come looking for trouble. If the sect really pushed him out because of that, he couldn't bear thinking about it. He needed to become stronger. I either have to find something unique to plant or find a new mine to get some bubbles. When he returned to the spirit herb garden, Jiang Hao saw the spirit beasts waiting eagerly for him. He threw the collar at it. The beast jumped and caught the collar. Then, it placed it around its neck. "Master, do I look like a big demon?" asked the beast, twirling around to check out its new collar. "Not really," said Jiang Hao. Jiang Hao walked to check on the herbs and absorbed the bubbles. ATTia absorbing the bubbles, Jiang Hao began to clean up. When Eni was tending to a specific herb that needed to be handled in a very tricky way, he felt impatient. He was surprised at himself. Jiang Hao had never felt like this before. He used to enjoy tending to the herbs. He had advanced from the 9th stage of the Lifeblood Refinement realm to the late stage of the Golden Core realm in less than 2 years. In 2 years, he had accomplished something that would have taken others so many years to achieve. It was inevitable for him to be a little proud. He was able to catch himself whenever he got arrogant, mostly thanks to the Heaven Extinction GU poison. Without it, Jiang Hao thought that his arrogance would have already killed him. Jiang Hao heaved a sigh of relief. I need to be more careful. Jiang Hao thought about the future. In another 2 years, he might be able to advance to the primordial spirit realm. After that, it might take 10 more years to cultivate his spirit. In 30 years, he could advance to return to Void Realm. Jiang Hao shook his head and chuckled. He was just daydreaming. The most important thing was to stay alive. For that, he needed to practice restraint and discipline. He tended to the herbs to calm himself. After returning to his house, he started to make talismans late into the night. This time, he took his time. He only drew 1 line of the character. He wanted to practice patience and get rid of his reckless thoughts. Undoubtedly, The talisman he was making failed. He then began to refine his cultivation. Days passed by, and Jiang Hao followed his routine. He didn't leave the Cliff of Broken Hearts during this time. Jiang Hao spent most of his time in the spirit herb garden, tended to the heavenly fragrance Dao flower, and refined his cultivation. He also drew talisman after talisman. He followed this routine every day. Autumn passed and winter arrived. It snowed for a while. Soon, the winter passed, and spring was marked by green saplings pushing their heads through the dirt. Half a year passed in this way. During this time, the immortal peach tree continued to grow. It was already 2 meters tall. Jiang Hao noticed that he had a better grip on his impatience and recklessness now. He no longer felt the need to hurry things up. A beam of light appeared on Jiang Hao's desk. He had drawn an ordinary heart-cleansing talisman. It had taken him half a night, and he hadn't failed this time. Finally. Fortunately, no one had approached him to cause trouble in half a year. He hadn't found anything about Bai Yi yet. He also hadn't met Liu Xingchen for a few months and didn't know what was going on. The next day, Jiang Hao followed the same routine and refined his cultivation. He had used up all the talisman-making materials and hadn't earned any spirit stones yet. Now, it was time to get back into the world and earn some spirit stones. When he walked out of his house, he saw Liu Xingchen walking toward him. There was something wrong with his aura. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.